Jonathan Taylor, there he goes again. 50, 40, down the far sideline. He might do it again. 10, 5, touchdown. I-N-D-Y.
The Eastern Conference Championship has been captured by the Indiana Pacers.
Alex Pillow wins the 109th Indianapolis 500.
This is the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, and Jeff.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome into midpoint of the week. Happy Wednesday, Mark. Hump day.
Hello.
Hump day. Let's go. James Boyd walking in here bright and bouncy this morning. As always, Kevin Bowen come with an entire page of notes ready to go. We've got a lot going on for you today. Looking forward to talking to Rick Carlisle today, correct?
Correct.
Talk about, I don't know, what do you make of last night's game where so many players from both teams were not playing, whether they were resting, whether they were being traded, whatever was going on? We saw a lot of reserves on both teams playing basketball last night, Kevin. And good news is, I guess, Jarris Walker looked pretty good in that group, right? Did okay?
Well, yeah.
I mean, he's scoring. That's what he's doing. That's what he is.
Scoring and certainly handing the ball to the other team quite a bit as well last night. You make nothing of last night, I guess, is probably the easiest way to sum it up. I was waiting for, Howard Isley and Greg Ostertag to run out of the visiting tunnel there last night to try and help out the Jazz. They played 7, I think.
That's all they had.
Which is kind of wild.
Well, they had the huge trade with Jaren Jackson Jr. acquiring him from the Grizzlies, so that kind of explains why they didn't have a lot of players available.
Right. Yeah, the
but
Pacers
for Pacers, it's looking at that, leadership board when it comes to landing number 1 pick potentially.
Yeah, so I was watching that game, and it was, it got fairly entertaining towards the end there, but you're just watching young guys try to develop is really what it came down to. I don't know in the big scheme of things you make much of it, but I think my point about Jarris Walker is I think what we're learning is there are a lot of holes in his game. He can score. And I think scoring is a talent that will take you a ways. It's not going to take you everywhere in the NBA, but the fact of the matter is not everybody can score 20 points on a given NBA night, and he seems to have the ability to do that.
He was playing against guys who probably are not NBA players regularly.
So he did what he should do, right?
Yeah, but me sitting here and slapping the scorer label on Jarris Walker, I don't know, man.
Well, I'm not talking about a leading score, but there are guys who can score and guys who can't. And my point is someone somewhere is always going to want something of his skill set, I would think.
We have Kevin back here trying to fix the TV because as much as I love JMV,
you don't want JMV over the shoulder there?
Behind your right shoulder. Okay.
Yeah, Mark, what am I clicking here?
Mark Dykton is like,
oh yeah,
Mark Dykton is like
in the house, baby.
I was going up and down.
He's like the Eagle Scout uncle that rushed in here and said, "Here, let me help you."
Yeah,
there you go.
On the old wheel.
Now you know.
Mark's like, I got to deal with this at home. I got to deal with this at work. Here we go. Grow up, Kevin.
Yeah.
Wow. You're getting attacked all of a sudden. You all right?
I'm good.
I see you're wearing the Cluster Truck hat today. That's an appropriate day for it. They're going to stop by later on today.
Yeah, shout out to Cluster Truck. That tailgate special, I think, would serve you quite well coming up for the I should call it the big game, right? On Sunday is not the technical way to call it. So, yes, thank you to Cluster Truck. Big fan. Your promo code there, the tailgate special, I think is tremendous. So, check that out for Sunday.
All right, so we had a little bit of basketball last night, and that's all good. And I guess the trade rumors continue to swirl. Giannis Antetokounmpo, James, put out a big statement yesterday. It was a love letter to Milwaukee. Didn't say he was leaving. Didn't say he was staying. He was just saying, don't tell me I'm not Milwaukee. My father passed away here. I've started a family here. I've lived here for a long time. I've learned how to be a man. I learned how to be a champion. Learned how to do all those things. It wasn't a goodbye, but he was making a little love letter to the city yesterday. What do you make of that?
I read the piece, and shout out to my buddy Jim. I hope I say his last name right. Is it Orzinski? He covers the Bucks for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and I thought it was phenomenal. One, to get that type of access from a star a few days before the trade deadline, and then Giannis basically poured his heart out. And, the part where he says, my dad is buried in Milwaukee. Why wouldn't I give my all to Milwaukee? Why wouldn't I want to be here? It's an interesting conversation, and you would like to believe everything he said about how he essentially wants to stay there. But the reality is when he also throws out there in the same interview, well, do they still want to win? Do they still want to compete? I'm thinking to myself, Have they not shown you that? They've done a lot of weird things. I mean, one of them being waving and stretching a player in Damian Lillard, which never happens, and then going and trying to get Miles Turner and trying to upgrade the roster in very unique ways. So they tried, but I don't know. It'll be a very interesting 24 hours and change for Giannis and potentially the Pacers as well. Not saying they're in on the Giannis sweepstakes. I'm not reporting that at all, but I do wonder, again, when we talk to Rick Carlisle, will he be coaching a team that looks a lot different come Friday or something like that after the trade deadline?
Can you, for a moment, Kevin, picture Giannis Antetokounmpo and Tyrese Halliburton starting to get surrounded and stacked up with role players so that the Pacers have the next 5 years of being able to get on the court with anybody again?
I cannot. No.
You won't even let yourself go there.
No, I've not. Yesterday was a pretty active day. Trade deadline, especially for not being the actual deadline day.
Right.
We often hear the phrase deadline spur action. We saw quite a bit of movement around the league. I'd say 4 or 5 trades. Benedict Matherin's name, like you said, continues to pop up in some rumors. So we'll hit on all that. Like you said, Rick Carlisle, 8 o'clock. For those just waking up, the Indiana Hoosiers did lose last night out in L.A. I would say probably the issue that's plagued them the most, just in general, rebounding, was the biggest problem for them last night. It was really Lamar Wilkerson and no one else that stepped up offensively. They certainly had chances. It was, for those that watched the UCLA game, that was the frantic finish trying to hold the lead. Indiana was the one doing the UCLA thing last night. They put USC on skates there in the final couple minutes, and USC, without their 2 leading scorers, were holding on for dear life. They were able to pull it out there. So, in general, anytime you have these West Coast trips, you would sign up for a split. But there is probably a little bit of okay, their best, the leading scorer was hurt. Their second leading scorer exits early in the second half due to injury. You think to yourself, well, boy, here's a great opportunity here. And they do let that one slip away. So Indiana losing last night to USC.
KB bringing up Elijah Arenas yesterday here on the show. Hadn't done much. I believe it was only his 5th game. He's coming back from injury, and of course he goes off. And I thought to myself, wow, well, that's son of an NBA player. And there were a couple of plays that looked like it. I know he shot the ball, I believe, 23 times to get 29 points, but when it came to making some bigger shots late, he was their guy. And honestly, Kevin, because I don't watch, obviously, a lot of USC games, I didn't realize how big his son is. His son must be a legitimate 6'6", because when he just raises up to shoot, it's well, good luck.
Yeah,
he's just bigger than the other guy.
North of 7 feet. Yeah, definitely built different than his dad. But yeah, he had some pretty special moments, honestly. I don't know if the box score will indicate all of that, but again, for Indiana, Tucker DeVries continues to be, I think, more on the struggling side than people thought. And Reed Bailey really has not been one that I think, he's obviously lost his starting job, and he struggled with some USC. I guess you'd call it some USC length. But so yeah, split the West Coast trip. Nothing for Indiana the rest of the week, obviously. Nothing for Purdue this week. Butler back in action tonight. They are a road underdog at Providence coming up tonight, 7 o'clock.
Yeah, and the Butler game Wednesday tonight, you will be able to hear that live right here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. So we're looking forward to that one, to bring you that. And just, the Super Bowl week continues. Nothing major going on. It's the one thing you want, James. You just don't want anybody to show up on an injured list all of a sudden. That's what you're looking for going into the week. Don't anybody get hurt.
I mean, if you're a Seahawks fan, you're hoping that Sam Darnold and the oblique issue that he's kind of been dealing with throughout the playoffs doesn't flare up here over the next couple of days. So, this first day of official practice today, I would assume, and you're getting ready for the biggest game of your life for most of these guys. So, very exciting times. And again, I was watching some of the clips from the media access, and a lot of it is peppered with dumb questions, I think. And I'm sitting up here saying I ask all the great questions all the time because I've asked some duds myself. But boy, I think when I get to this point in the week and the build-up for the game, I'm sick of hearing about, asking Stephon Diggs, hey, are you going to give Cardi B a ring after the Super Bowl after you get your ring? It's like, man, I couldn't care less about any of that. Are you going to run this route and get open? So I'm very excited for the game and the matchup itself. And I do think it'll be a closer game than some people might think.
All right, we'll talk about all of it coming up a little bit later on today. Rick Carlisle, you said 9 o'clock this morning, correct?
8 o'clock.
8
Yes.
o'clock.
Yep.
Last night, did I see 9 o'clock on a text chain? I'm sorry.
It's all good.
8 o'clock coming up this morning. So a lot to do, and let's get to a check down coming up in just a moment here. We'll be back on the 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The gold standard for hair restoration, it is We Grow Hair Indie. Very simple, wegrowhairindy.com. I think you start there. You'll see before and after pictures. You'll see a lot of results, obviously oriented content there on their website, pictures and videos. But then from there, highly, highly encourage you to contact them. Free evaluation, private evaluation, virtual evaluation, whatever fits you. All of that is available to you at We Grow Hair Indie. So the results, I think, will speak for itself, but certainly it's a big decision, and you're going to have some questions and curiosity that you want to know. So contact Darren Andrews and his staff today if you want to. Brick and mortar, Northwest Side. That would be the Pyramids of building number 2. And again, online, it is We Grow Hair Indie. Chat with people that have had procedures done inside, or I should say outside of the state, even outside of the country. And oh boy, stories not the most comforting, to say the least. Did not have that experience at all. So contact We Grow Hair Indie today. Again, online, wegrowhairindy.com, the gold standard for hair restoration.
checked out. Brought to you by the Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. March starts here. The Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships with NCAA tournament bids on the line. March 8th through 10th. Tickets and more at horizonleague.com/Indy.
All kinds of basketball to talk about. We'll start in the NBA. Last night, Indiana plays the second of back-to-back games. They lose to Utah 131-122. Isaiah Collier had a career-high 22 assists. Lauri Markkanen led the Jazz with 27. Quentin Johnson and Jarris Walker had 24 apiece for the Pacers, who were playing without Pascal Siakam, Benedict Mathurin, Andrew Nembhard, and TJ McConnell. So I'll ask, we talked about it a moment ago, just a chance for young guys to get out there and try to get better last night. What do you make of the whole thing in the big picture? Anything?
Yeah, Quentin Jackson. He played, I thought, was probably the best Pacer last night. How about Isaiah Collier? Played every minute. How many times do we see that in the NBA regular season? Dude's playing every minute. I saw the NBA put out, I believe, the youngest player in league history to ever eclipse 20 assists in a game. So quite the notion for a game that otherwise I felt bad for people paying full price.
The pretty purple uniforms and the cool racer uniforms for the Pacers last night. That's what I took away from it, watching it a little bit here and there on TV.
I do like those uniforms by the Pacers. Those are pretty sweet. But yeah, Isaiah Collier, the stat that I saw, Kevin, was that the only other player in Jazz history to have more assists in the game was John Stockton. So pretty good company to be in.
The Pacers will play again in Milwaukee on Friday. In the meantime, the Jazz were so shorthanded they had traded former Pacer George Niang, Kyle Anderson, Walter Clayton Jr., and Taylor Hendricks to Memphis for Jaren Jackson Jr., Jock Landale, John Conchar, and Vince Williams Jr. But the big trade of the night came when the Clippers sent James Harden to Cleveland. Darius Garland goes back to the Clippers. Short-term, long-term. Who wins that trade, James?
I think Cleveland wins that trade, perhaps short-term and long-term, because I'm not sure. One, James Harden is a first ballot Hall of Famer, so there's that. He's playing pretty good basketball this year. You're trying to win now if you're Cleveland. You think it's wide open in the East, and quite frankly, it probably is. So I understand why they made that move. And then on the flip side, you want to believe that Darius Garland, Gary native, by the way, is a building block for your franchise, but I'm not so sure about his toe. The toe issue that he's had the last couple of years might hinder him from becoming the player that he truly can be. I mean, he's a two-time All-Star, very talented kid, but anytime players have foot problems, I'm just a little more skeptical.
Is Harden and Mitchell really going to fit? I that one I was scratching my head at. I understand who James Harden is as a career player, but is that really going to work?
I look at it like this, Kevin. I don't think that it's going to lead them to a championship, but are they a better team with him versus Darius Garland? I say yes.
Yeah, I mean, they won 60 games with Garland. Yeah, I get it.
Hey,
locally, Jay Nivey moved yesterday. Obviously, there's some Benedict Mathurin conversation with that, just given where those two were drafted side by side back a couple of drafts ago to Chicago for Ivy. You had Mike Conley Jr. a part of that trade as well.
Still hanging on.
Still hanging on, but I don't know if that's a great. He went to Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would have to check and see.
Yes, Bulls, Pistons, and Timberwolves had a 3-team trade. Jaden Ivey and Mike Conley both end up with the Bulls.
So I'd say he's there for now. Have you seen how many guards are on that Bulls roster right now?
I know. Again, Thursday, 3 o'clock, just to clear everything up there from a deadline standpoint. I thought the other notable one was Boston. Nikola Vucevic, speaking of Bulls trades, Mark, off to Boston there. So I don't know if that's an indicator that they think Jason Tatum's going to play later this season, and they're trying to push some chips into the middle. To James's point, the East is probably a little bit more open. So, again, quite a bit of activity on a Tuesday with the trade deadline still about 36 hours away.
Yeah, they gave up Anthony Simons for him in that deal. Also in the NBA, they announced teams for the NBA All-Star game coming up. They also added Kawhi Leonard. He slides in there. Kind of an older team there's 2 USA teams and a world team under this new 3-team format. They kind of went with an older team on one side for USA and a younger team on the other side. On the older team, you're going to have Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Donovan Mitchell, Norman Powell, Jaylen Brown, Jalen Brunson. Older guys, but man, that group can play. A lot of those guys reunited from the Olympics in France.
I was going to say, yeah, we weren't going to get gold without them.
Yeah. All right, so that's what we have going on in the NBA. Lots going on there. Girls basketball last night. We started some sectional play in the opening rounds. Plainfield is next going to play Brownsburg after defeating Ben Davis 55-50 to 51, I believe, last night. Hannah Mentor had 18 points in that one. Zionsville over Fishers, 50-37. Hamilton Southeastern with a 60-46 win over Westfield. From the Super Bowl, National Football League Players Association, Kevin, they said players have no appetite for an 18th regular season game. Is that just posturing, or are they like, no, we're done at 17?
Well, I think once we get to labor disputes, that's probably when that will become a little bit more front and center from a topic.
That was their big release yesterday from the NFLPA.
All it takes is give them an extra day off during training camp, and they'll sign up. Because that seems to be all it takes.
Yeah, I think it's money, honestly.
Yeah,
when I have this conversation with players in the locker room, I've to ask this question for anonymous surveys like on a yearly basis, and the answer is always rooted in money. And usually the answer might shift if you're a star player versus if you're a player. Because the guys on the lower end of the totem pole, they're always like, well, I'll do whatever allows me to play the game I love. So something to think about.
All right. Also, a potential IndyCar race in the nation's capital got another step closer yesterday. The event now has a promoter, Monumental Sports and Entertainment. That group owns the Capitals, the Wizards, and the Mystics. They're talking about August 23rd, Kevin, for a race through the streets of the nation's capital.
Yeah, I don't think this has been talked. I think it's a done deal, right?
It just keeps building and building. Now it actually has a promoter to put the event on. So
again, for those that did not stay up last night, 81-77 out in L.A. Indiana loses to USC. Lamar Wilkerson was outstanding, 33 points, but little help. Nick Dorn came back down to earth. Tucker DeVries continues to struggle a bit. And just in general, the rebounding, defending without fouling, that continues to be probably Indiana's biggest question mark. And USC... really without their leading scorer, their second leading scorer exits early second half. Certainly an opportunity there for the Hoosiers, but they could not get it done. Put some pressure on USC throughout the final few minutes of that game, but the Trojans eventually hit their free throws and put that game on ice.
Yeah, Lamar Wilkerson, the only Indiana player in double digits, had 33, and Nick Dorn, who's been on fire, just 2 of 12 last night. Everybody comes down to earth for a minute here, James.
Yeah, I figured that'd be the case, man. I mean, when you shoot it that well from 3, unless your name is Steph Curry, you're bound to regress a little bit.
All right, so that's later on tonight. Butler at Providence. We talked about that. Airtime 6:30 here on the Fan, and Notre Dame plays at Louisville. You gonna head down the highway to go see that one?
Ryan Bowen and I have seen too many heartbreaking losses in Old Freedom Hall. I think we've seen one in the Yum Center now that I think about it. But Old Freedom Hall, I can still picture Luke Herringody putting the team on his back in there. I think they lost single or double overtime. The Louisville fans were yelling at my brother and I on the way to the exits to pray to Yahweh.
Boy.
Wow. Rough crowd. Just keep your head down and keep moving.
Ryan Bowen was a little bit more antsy. I wouldn't say he was Pat Knight antsy maybe and going after some of the officials that we saw over the weekend, but
he was thinking about it.
He definitely made a little bit of a aggressive move in their direction. But thankfully, cooler heads did prevail. Butler slight underdog tonight, by the way. 3.5-point underdog at Providence. That was the wild game. I remember Providence, the first game this season. That was one of the crazier college basketball games I've seen. Double overtime. Butler getting it done inside of Hinkle. So Butler on the road at Providence, at Marquette here. They will host UConn a week from tonight.
I'm going back to the story Kevin was telling. It almost felt like it was being edited, both remembered and edited in real time, didn't it?
I don't know. I'm just saying, hey, KB, do you have your family's back? If something goes down, are you swinging? You got nice reach.
Certainly.
All right, that's all we got to.
And then they were confused the next year we went there because they thought Herringody had graduated and they couldn't believe that they thought Jack Cooley looked like Herringody. Do you guys remember Jack Cooley?
Yeah, that's pretty okay. Fair.
I thought you said he graduated. He's right there. I see him down there. He kicked our ass last year.
Oh, Lord. That is college fandom right there, baby. That's how I felt about Perry Ellis at Kansas.
Dreaming or I'm nightmaring Samardo Samuels just smoking.
Who's the other one in the Big Ten? Boo Booey?
Yeah,
boy, I feel like he never graduated from Northwestern.
Scotty Reynolds is still at Villanova, right?
Right, exactly. Certain guys you just expect to be there forever. Aaron Kraft is another one.
Well, in today's world, you can see that a lot more. Everybody's just suing the NCAA for a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th year sometimes.
This is ridiculous. I mean, who was the Alabama dude that came back? He's not even like good. I'm like, you did all this to come back and you're not even killing. If you signed an NBA contract and you're a few years removed from that, you should come back to the NCAA and dominate. My goodness. What are we doing?
All right, coming up in a moment, we'll talk a little bit more college basketball, get you ready for the week ahead. Also, Pacers, like everybody else, keeping an eye on that trade deadline. We're less than 2 days away now. Got all that covered for you as we continue the Fan Morning Show, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
This is the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, and Jeff.
Can I try and stump you guys on Super Bowl trivia? The man with the most catches in a Super Bowl game. James Boyd, Jeff Rickard, and I'm checking internet browsers over there. And I'm not checking them for the same reasons HR checks Mark Dykton's internet browser.
I think he's trying to watch some illegal channels here.
I don't think you guys can get it the rest of the show.
Well, Julian Edelman, that's my pick. Let the record show that I gave my prediction. Jeff, you better give one, because if we go to break and you come back and give one and it's right, I'm not buying it. You either, Mark. Jeff, you got to give a name, brother.
I thought it might be like a Demarius Thomas, but I kind of like your answer though, James.
Oh, don't take my answer. I'm
No,
not
but
right.
I think you
don't
might.
think.
Is it one of those guys that caught a million passes out of the backfield for the Patriots? Remember, they used to have, they had a long line of guys that they would just keep throwing the ball out of the backfield.
Let's see, Jeff's looking at the text line with the
No,
answer.
Andy S.
sitting
See what I
right
mean?
there.
Andy S.
Man, Jeff.
Andy
Where's
S.
the integrity, man?
Andy S. said,
Where's
"Isn't
the
it James
integrity?
White?"
Oh
But
my God! Unbelievable.
That's not true. That's a lie.
You are a liar.
He's lying! You lie!
Lies. Oh, lies!
You sit on a throne of lies.
Oh, that's not.
is that the right answer?
Man, you didn't even have to walk to the bathroom to all of a sudden have your eyes.
I'm looking at the text line, and a guy
That's
brings up a
cheating.
point that I hadn't
Shout
thought about
yourself
that I don't know.
Did
that
we
that's
not
the
hear
answer.
no internet browser? Did you miss
No.
that part?
This is bullshit.
Here's what I will say. I brought that up without saying a name because I didn't want to say the name and didn't want to steal it from the guy that I was going to give credit to later on the other side of the break.
Get the out.
BS.
I'm going to puke
All right.
more than I did when we drank that mayo coffee.
There you go.
gosh.
I did not name the name on purpose.
I lied about that too.
Boy, that integrity went out the window pretty quickly there.
Did I say the name? Did I say the name? I was going to give Andy S. credit, and I also said before that I had no idea if it wasn't Demarius Thomas or Julian Edelman. No idea.
I don't have the patience to jack with you today.
I don't know, man.
I guess it is
a rough
fitting
room.
in a
It's a
week
rough
that
room.
Belichick and Kraft don't get into the Hall of Fame that Jeff decides to wear that hat.
As always, I'm staring at the text line to see the wonderful, intelligent, thoughtful things that people say. Andy S. had an answer. It made sense in my head, but I didn't say that. I said I would have guessed Demarius Thomas. That's what I said.
Mark,
And
play
then
that, play that again. Mark, play it
Andy
again.
S. got the credit.
Let's run it back right now.
Just play it again. We got people in here misremembering how things went down here on the show. Play it again, Mark.
No.
Play it again. Kevin, if
I'll
you
re-rack
want
it a little
to
later,
deduct
maybe.
more points today for
No.
not falling on the sword, you do that.
It's the reason why he was tossing and turning a whole lot last night.
Yeah.
Hard to sleep after that one.
Yeah. That's a tough one right there. But no, Andy S. was the guy that came up with it. Out of everybody here, you came up with it because you stumbled across it. But I will not be roughed up over that one.
I knew the answer because I had James White on my fantasy team, and that's of course the Super Bowl he went off. I'm like, where was that all year? You didn't do anything for me all season, and then you do that in the Super Bowl.
My goodness. Welcome into the Fan. That's it. That's the Fan Morning Show right here, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. You look at me like you're disappointed in a family member, James.
I'm disappointed, Jeff. Disappointed.
Grinning ear to ear, but you're disappointed.
Disappointed, man. I mean, I don't know if you gave out any instructions other than don't use the internet. I didn't hear the part about phoning a friend.
I did not have any research going on. The text line was in front of me. You guys clearly saw. Andy S. had the right answer.
Man, boy.
There you go.
For those that missed it, James White is your Super Bowl. I guess he's caught the most passes of any player in a Super Bowl.
In a single
Probably
game
the
or total?
easiest way to put it, in a single game. He did that against the Falcons back in that big comeback there. So there's your water cooler talk to stump some of your work colleagues this
You got any
morning.
more today?
James White. Well, I did, but integrity was broken yesterday, so I don't want to.
The trust tree has
to go down that path
I see
again.
how it's going. We're that couple, and now this you're going on the honeymoon all by yourself. I see how it goes now. It's over.
Mark, I do want to. I know I was bugging you through one of the breaks. Tyrese Halliburton went on the Mind the Game podcast with LeBron James, and he talked about the build up to Game 7. So if you have that audio queued up, Mark, I would love for the listeners to be able to listen to that because I thought the perspective he shared was a little bit different than the agony of defeat and kind of the devastation of the aftermath. The buildup was very interesting to me. So here's Tyrese Halliburton on leading up to the biggest game of his life.
All I could think about going into Game 7 the night before was like, tomorrow is the biggest moment in my basketball career. This will define the way that people talk about me for the rest of my career. That's the way I viewed it. And if that's correct or incorrect, I didn't care, because I was like, if I win, and I know I'm not, legacy talk is a bigger thing and I don't necessarily care, but like to be a lead point guard, to help lead a team to win a championship, that puts me in some rare air. You know what I mean? In a space that, you know, is pretty special. So all I could think about was, tomorrow's a big moment. Don't put more pressure on myself. I'm just gonna go out there and hoop. And I had it going early. And there was a dude courtside. I was like, he's gonna be the guy I'm going at today. Like, I'm talking to him. I'm like, all right, we gone now. Like, and I don't know the stat, but if I've scored 10 points in a first quarter in my career, I don't think I've ever lost. So I had 9 in like, 6 minutes, you know? So I'm feeling good. I'm like, I've never felt like this, to where, you know, it was like documented, like if he makes the first shot, he has a good game. If he misses the first one, it's bad or whatever. Well, I made that motherfucker that game. So I'm like, we gonna go. And I missed like my third 3 and got it back and hit a quick one. I was like, all right, we're gonna go off this and ultimately get injured. But I mean, it was just such a special time for us. And it all coincided with so many different things at the same time, bro. Like the run, the overrated stuff, What the Helly, the song coming out, like it all kind of rose at once, and it kind of all just, you know, took a life of its own. So it was really special for us, man.
I enjoyed that perspective from him, because it wasn't, again, the doom and gloom of I got injured, it was over. It was more so, boy, if we do this, everything changes. This is why I love championships in all sports, because legacies get defined or rewritten. And I know the story goes, OKC champion, Pacers not, but boy, for those first few minutes of Game 7, I thought that Tyrese Halliburton was authoring, until we saw the Hoosiers, of course, one of the greatest stories in Indiana sports history. I mean, it still is, but without the championship, I don't know if I can place it up there with all the others, but man, that was a good way to reminisce, I think, versus how we usually look at that moment.
I always enjoy when players talk to other players for an extended period of time, because I do think you get real talk. I think players will say things to other players or coaches that they won't say to someone who is not currently or has been some kind of history person of the game. I do think you get much, much better conversation. You get a lot more revealed, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Kevin, who better to talk to about finals moments than the guy who has been to 10 of them in LeBron James?
Yeah, it was a great listen. Part 1 yesterday was a great listen as well. You know, I feel a little bit, first off, I love Tyrese Halliburton's candor. I think I've said that before. I love listening to him talk basketball, period. I find myself very, very educated every time I listen to him talk. It just kind of sucks that, like, the night before Game 7, he cares that much about what people think about him. You know, like, it's just kind of a bummer of, like, that's our sports culture right now. Like,
you don't think that's the case with, I don't know though, but because man, Kevin, doesn't every competitor think like that? If I win Game 7 on the road against the best team in basketball, of course I'm going to think what everyone thinks of me.
You know, if you go back like the first 10 seconds, he's like, you know, it's going to define my legacy, blah, blah, blah. He says that to start off. And then like 5 seconds later, he's like, and I don't really care about that. It's like, wait a minute, you just said that you did care about that. So
I mean,
it's like
a little white lie every now and then, right?
You know, and that's just, you know, that's just a bummer of like, and this is probably more of a human question than anything. We care so much about what people think of us. I mean, period.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest myths is when people tell you, "Oh, don't worry about what people think."
Yeah.
I'm devastated right now that you guys think less of me today.
And so for Tyrese, it's like, dude, you've done so much to just get this team to Game 7. Like, you know, you've put literally this team on your back for, you know, quite the run. I did have to laugh/cry when he brought up, as much as he thinks about Game 7, the game he thinks about more is Game 4.
Yeah.
And him and I are certainly in the same boat. I know you guys were not happy with me the morning after Game 4 of just how down I was, because to me that was the missed opportunity. Asking to win another game on the road is a big ask in the NBA Finals, particularly against that team. And I think Tyrese said as much yesterday. For those that are in the shoe craze, Tyrese did mention already working on shoe number 2. for him. So right around the corner from here.
Did you ever get any of
was
those?
the
James?
distribution of shoe
I
number
do.
1. So I don't know a date per se on that, but again, just a really fun combo from Tyrese Halliburton. And he wears it on his sleeve, which I appreciate. You have a lot of prominent figures that I think are just don't want to share as much as he wants to. And he is really, really forthcoming. I think to your point, Jeff, it helps when LeBron is with him. He clearly thinks of LeBron in super, super high regard. So, yeah, that was a fun listen.
I will say this when it comes to caring what people think as an athlete, Kevin. I think what you are saying and how you described the run with Halliburton and the appreciation for what he had done is rational. And so much of the conversation around sports is not rational, especially when it came to the Pacers run. I mean, half the conversation, shout out to The Athletic, was, are you overrated? And
which he talked a ton about with LeBron yesterday.
Are you a true number one on your team? Can you win in that Pacers style of play with, the space and pace? But I think why it's so motivating to kind of put myself in those shoes, and boy, have I ever imagined being in a Game 7. I feel like a lot of us have as sports fans. But if you win it, it shuts everyone up. Or at least it allows you to tell everybody else to shut the F up pretty much, because in my mind, I won it. Even when I look at like guys like Jalen Hurts in the NFL, we can criticize his game forever, and he can say, well, I won a Super Bowl and I got a Super Bowl MVP. All these other guys that you guys love ain't done that. Not Lamar Jackson, not Josh Allen. And even when we get to Sunday's game, if Drake May or Sam Darnold wins a Super Bowl and most likely Super Bowl MVP, that changes everything. If I'm Sam Darnold, you can't tell me anything anymore ever. And I think that's the motivating part. Not like those who appreciate how you got there, because I think Sam Darnold's story is crazy. Drake May in his second year getting to the Super Bowl is crazy. But if you win it, that's the ultimate trump card. That's the ultimate middle finger to anybody who ever hated on you. So hopefully Halliburton and company gets that chance here again soon.
James, you were in the building for this last year. You brought up Drake May. I found myself yesterday going back to Colts Patriots last year.
I'm glad you brought this up.
What do you remember about that game? Colts at Patriots last year. December 1st, if I remember correctly. I think it was the first game of December.
Honestly, I think a lot of the conversation I had with Joey Erickson, Stephen Holder, and other regulars here on the show was that Drake May is for real. And they might have found their guy. And I thought that he was very poised in a game where, he didn't have as much talent as he has this year. Obviously, the coach was different as well. I just thought that he looked really good. And I didn't expect him to be as good as he was in year 2 and to go to the Super Bowl. But in my mind, I was like, wow, they might have found their guy already. Yeah. And he's taking it a step further this year.
Yeah, I definitely walked away that thought with May. I also was reminded yesterday of you could make the argument that was Richardson's finest moment as a pro. He leads the 19-play game-winning touchdown drive. 19-play touchdown drive. He leads that at the end of the game. They convert multiple fourth downs on that drive. He has the pass to Alec Pierce in the end zone, and then Shane Steichen goes for 2. Richardson runs it in for the 2-point conversion. That's the game winner. And honestly, the thought that I had yesterday was more of, wow, 14 months later, Drake May might win the Super Bowl, might be MVP, probably not, but might be MVP. And Colts fans are bracing themselves for Anthony Richardson to be traded for a 4th-round pick. That was Richardson. That was arguably Richardson's highest moment as a pro, and he has started 2 games since then. It's just amazing how quickly things have changed. Because remember, he had that Jets game. He gets benched last year after the tap out and all that. He comes back, and the Jets game, he had a very similar fourth quarter.
Yeah,
leading the big drive. That was more with his right arm. That might have been maybe the most individually impressive.
That's the best game he's ever had in the NFL.
Because that was more of him as a thrower, not as a runner. But the New England game was, also up there, more running, I would say, than throwing. But again, leads the 19-play, fourth quarter drive. Oh my gosh, he's now done it on the road twice in a couple week stretch here. And then, boom, he starts the next 2 weeks, and then the back injury happens, and here we are. And Drake May has a new coach since that game and is now playing for a Super Bowl. It's boy, it's pretty wild how those two have gone in very, very different directions in the last 14 months.
Yeah, the here and now, not great for Anthony Richardson. And when you talk about if Drake May and the Patriots pull this off, and let's say he does get MVP, you want to talk about sitting on a rocket ship to stardom in his second year to lead New England, of all teams, to a Super Bowl. Every advertiser in America is going to want a piece of him. We're going to hear the Patriots fans start chirping again about here comes another dynasty and all that kind of stuff. But what is the realistic best scenario future for Anthony Richardson?
He goes somewhere else and proves himself to be an NFL starter. Like, I don't think that he's going to be a star in the NFL. I think that ship has kind of sailed, at least in my mind. So you're at the point now where can you get a franchise to trust you enough to hand you the keys and kind of rehab your image a little bit? And can you be enough of a game manager to be the top half-ish of the NFL when it comes to quarterbacks? And I still think that's probably a long shot, to be honest with you. I get it. I think anyone who still believes in Anthony, and rightfully so, I get the physical talent, the age, and stuff like that. But you have to convince yourself that so many things that have gone wrong will go right. And I'm a bit cynical when it comes to the NFL and your trajectory. I think it's very hard to change it after the fact. Like the fact that Sam Darnold stuck around long enough and earned another opportunity to played well enough to not only start in Minnesota, but get another franchise to give $100 million to start again for them and go to the Super Bowl that's an anomaly. That is not the norm. So I think when people look at rehab images, we have a tendency to look at the good ones and say, well, Baker Mayfield rehabbed himself and Daniel Jones to an extent rehabbed himself and Sam Darnold, but most of those guys don't go that route, and we don't talk about them a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
Tom Hanks is on that island.
Yeah.
There's not many people on that island.
Like, even when we were talking about the Super Bowl and the class that Sam Darnold is in, we mentioned, oh, man, he made a Super Bowl before Josh Allen, before Lamar Jackson, before Baker Mayfield, and everyone casually leaves out that Josh Rosen was drafted as well in that draft class. And we don't mention him because he isn't one of the great redemption stories. So I think Anthony is really up against it, and at this point, a change of scenery still would probably do him some good.
What is the realistic return for Anthony Richardson? Is there trade value there at all?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about kind of the early day 3 pick, again, that 4th rounder. You know, he does have a cap hit next year of $10.8 million. That is I looked it up. I believe that's the 10th biggest cap hit on the team. So, like, even if you just live in that world, you know, if internally you view Anthony Richardson not part of your situation, it's just hard to carry a $10.8 million cap hit for a dude that's holding the Microsoft Surface all game long or has the earpiece in all game long. So, yeah, that, to me, again, early day 3 pick. Now, I don't think it's a big group of people, but I do think there are some that say, you know what? The franchise quarterback, and I say franchise in quotes, Daniel Jones, that dude's coming off a torn Achilles. That dude's got an injury history that's quite long. I'm not betting on him. I'm not getting rid of Richardson. I'm not getting rid of Riley Leonard. We're going to need other quarterbacks. I mean, hell, this year you needed a dude off the couch. Now, granted, the Richardson, chaos contributed to that. But again, I don't think that's a big group of people. And if the Colts are going to try to improve their football team this season, particularly defensively, I think that $10.8 million cap hit is something that you need not to be sitting there. So that is a conversation that I've heard. But again, we're probably going to find out in the next month. I mean, what are we? A little over a month away from free agency, less than 3 weeks away from the combine. I mean, this is the time when those talks start to heat up.
So given what we know, and assuming Anthony Richardson is completely healthy and ready to go by camp, give me who's the depth chart? Who's number 2 at quarterback? Is it still Richardson, or based on the last guy we saw play okay, is it Riley Leonard?
Riley. I think the depth chart, if all 3 are Colts come the fall, is Daniel Jones, Riley Leonard, and Anthony Richardson number 3. And because of that, he probably should get moved. So we'll see what happens.
But I like Kevin's point, though, too. Can you afford to not have all 3 of those guys for 1 year, knowing that Daniel Jones, who's oft injured anyway, is coming back off a major injury?
It's a good point, but are you weighing that versus the money you could use not paying Anthony Richardson elsewhere?
Yeah, those are
Trying to get your roster.
Got to get younger and faster, right?
That's what I'm saying. And jokes aside, I mean, you've made your bet with Daniel Jones. And to be quite honest with you, what's the great Tom Moore quote that we can't play here on these airwaves? Like, if 18 goes down, we are bleeped, and we don't practice bleeped. Well, the reality is you hitched your wagon to Daniel Jones, and if and when he goes down next year, which is I would say more likely than not because he's only played one full season out of his first 7, then are you imagining some miracle run with Riley Leonard or Anthony Richardson? Both of those guys, in my opinion, would only be good if you're trying to win a game or two, not trying to save a season. So, I don't know.
Did you guys watch the flag football game?
No.
Okay.
I didn't watch 1 minute of it.
I did watch some of this because shout out to the dean, Mike Chappell. He texted me and told me what time it was, kind of tongue in cheek. Turned it on, and it was god awful. It was so bad that.
Were they jogging?
Yeah, and then they had a bunch of like kickers were playing wide receiver, and offensive linemen were catching passes, and Jamar Chase was playing defensive back, and Shadur Sanders threw a pick, which I thought was kind of funny. But yeah, it was horrible, but it was so bad that I had it on the background as I was doing some other things in the apartment, cleaning up, called my family, caught up with them. It was kind of on mute, but it was horrendous. I'm not going to lie about that. It was bad.
Sounds like we didn't miss much, Kevin. I think we're okay.
I mean, I felt like a degenerate watching it, and boy.
Did you bet on it?
No.
Then you're not quite a degenerate yet.
Can you bet on the Pro Bowl?
You can bet on anything.
Oh,
Where have you been?
Come on, of course.
Did you bet last
I was
night
joking.
on the Pro Bowl?
No.
All right.
You can bet on the Pro Bowl. Yeah.
You
If you
can
bet on the
anything.
Pro Bowl, call that number, please.
I basically told Ashley, like, if you see me like sweating a Pro Bowl, you need to call the gambling hotline for me. Things have gone sideways. Our mortgage is probably on the line.
All right. Rick Carlisle coming up next. It's the Fan Morning Show at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, 8 o'clock on a Wednesday. Will be a quiet next, I guess, 2.5 days, if you will, on the floor for the Indiana Pacers. We do have the NBA trade deadline coming up Thursday afternoon. Pacers just wrapped up a back-to-back the last 2 nights. And to talk more about where the Pacers are at as the All-Star break approaches, we head to the Payless Liquors hotline right now. He is the head coach of the Pacers. He is Rick Carlisle. Coach, good morning. How are we doing?
Just fine.
January complete, I would say, certainly your best month of the season. Obviously, general health has improved for your team, but in particular, what did you like about January that saw the results be easily the best month of the season for you?
Well, it probably starts with better health. That certainly has been a big part of it. And then, as we've gone along here, we've worked. Our guys have continued to work. We had some practice time. We had a difficult trip, the one with the Oklahoma City game, but we were able to win in Oklahoma City, which was pretty cool, and got a couple wins at home earlier in the week. And so, there's been some reasonable momentum and some pretty good things happening, and our younger guys continue to work and get better.
Rick, I know this was a few days ago, but Pascal Siakam being named an All-Star, I believe for the second time with the Pacers, 4th time overall. You were very adamant about him all season, and now that has been solidified, how do you think Pascal earned that honor despite the team record being what it is?
Well, we have 13 wins, and by my count, I think he has 5 game winning shots out of 13. That's not half, but it's approaching half the games. And, when the rest of the league looks at him and his body of work and what he has stood for as a player, with the level of integrity that he approaches his craft, how he leads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then you get into everything he does on the floor and the skill and all that. It's pretty clear that, even though it's been a very down year for us from a wins perspective, that he still has shown very brightly in this league. And I believe, if the way they announced the names was an indication, he had the 4th most votes in the East from the coaches, which is very, very strong.
One more on the Pascal front, Coach. Obviously, you guys make that trade in season a couple of years ago, and certainly in Toronto, he was a key piece on that title team. But it's not like he was this high draft pick and uber prominent college player coming out. What is something that maybe you've learned about Pascal being with him every day for the last couple of years that you did not know when you guys acquired him?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. He was the 2nd or 3rd guy in Toronto, maybe even the 4th guy at times before he kind of kept moving up the ladder with that group. They had Kawhi Leonard, they had Lowry, and they had some other good players too. But he's just a guy that his personality, he just he bides his time. He continues to work at what he does, and he just continued to get better. And I thought when he came to us, we had pieces in place that greatly enhanced his game. I thought Tyrese was a great fit with him. That's an obvious one. A shooting big like Turner was an important element as well. I don't know that they had that in Toronto. And then, I just thought the way our team was constructed and the way that we embraced him as a city, as an organization, as a team, as a coaching staff, I think that was another thing that kind of illuminated his abilities. So he's continued to get better. He's not a super young player anymore. I think he's 31 or something like that, but he's a young 31. He went to 4 years of college, at least that's my recollection, at New Mexico State. And, for a guy that's played this many years, he still has a young body, and a game that is continues to evolve.
Rick, looking at last night, obviously you all sat a lot of guys, but one guy who stood out, has stood out at times throughout this season is Johnny Furphy. So how will you evaluate his overall development here this season and what he can offer you on both ends of the floor? I think one of the funniest things that I've enjoyed watching is seeing guys kind of try to go at him and them realizing in real time that he's a pretty good wing defender.
He is, and he's tough. He's from an athletic family in Australia. His brother is a professional Australian rules football player. I think his sister's a professional tennis player. They're serious athletes, and Johnny's his his boyish looks belie his toughness, and he's gotten stronger. I believe he's grown taller in the last year and a half since we've had him. Very young when we drafted him. He's gained, I don't know what the total amount of weight he's gained in muscle, but it's somewhere between 15 and 20, maybe even a little more than that pounds. And all that stuff has helped him. And if you look at his statistics, they're not for the minutes that he plays. And if you study his net rating stuff, he's a guy that is a positive player for us because he's solid defensively. He does the things within our system that we need in terms of running, finishing on the break, hitting open shots. And again, he's a young guy that continues to improve.
It's the voice of Rick Carlisle again. Pacers just wrapped up a back-to-back. They will be in Milwaukee coming up on Friday. A lot of road games coming up with the All-Star break, breaking up a little bit of that. Coach, there was a moment the other night where I think Aaron Neesmith might have been whistled for a charge. The camera panned to you, and you reached in your pocket and looked like you pulled out some little, I don't know, index card shaped thing and took a glance at it. I'm curious, like in-game wise, what notes, if any, do you look at? Like, is that something where I have no idea, like free throw percentages for the other team, or, are there things that you want to look at, whether it's on the scores table or in your pocket, that you like to check throughout a game?
Well, the game stats are updated every time out. So, those are, that's Mike Preston puts that on the table. And so I'm constantly looking at that. So there's certain things you look at. Certainly the score is something you're always aware of, but what are the rebounding totals? What are the turnover totals? Free throws, stuff like that. And certainly minutes is something that you look at as a head coach as you go through a season, and there are certain thresholds that that are important for guys not to exceed. And so it's that kind of stuff. And then I've got a card in my pocket that I've got a couple of different things. One is a thing that is has an outline for rotation, but at this point, as we've gotten healthier, that's not really needed. And then it's a thing with a list of, different plays and actions and other notes. So, it's that kind of stuff.
I know Kevin Pritchard has mentioned when you guys get to this time of the year, if there are players in trade talks, you like to alert players of that so they're not caught off guard. Have you had to alert any players of that this week?
No.
Are you expecting a move by 3 o'clock tomorrow?
Last one from me, Rick. When you have a game like yesterday when you're resting a number of guys, what other things are you looking at besides trying to get a win? Like when you're evaluating players, is it style of play? Is it your rotations when it's a little bit off that night? Is it trying to see what a guy can do with more on their plate? Like, what types of things are you evaluating when you don't have your normal rotation, as like you just mentioned, your team's getting a little healthier?
Well, last night, we had 9 guys. So, Potter was kind of a late scratch. He did something to his hip in the Houston game, and unexpectedly he was unable to play. So, he would have been probably our backup 4 last night, but because he was out, we were kind of hurting for the 4 position. So we had Walker starting at 4 and Furphy at 3, and Furphy's 6'8", so Furphy can play 4. And so one of the things was just making sure one of those 2 guys was relatively fresh and available to play the 4 position, which bumped a guy like Ethan Thompson, who's a 2 guard, to the 3, and Talon Peter, who's normally a 2, and he played a few minutes at 3, et cetera, et cetera. So some of it's positional stuff. That's kind of the the caretaking of the game, from the standpoint of what the rotation looks like. And then, when you have the main guys out, forget about Tyrese Halliburton being out, but now you got Nembhard out. Now you got Siakam out. Now you got Neesmith out. Now you got Mathurin out. You got McConnell. Those are all our main playmakers, and scorers. And so, what's it going to look like when guys like Walker and Furphy now have to step up into playmaking roles, and they have to be guys that are facilitators, and not just receivers. And so I thought Walker did some really great things in the first half. Second half, there was some turnovers that are avoidable things that were uncharacteristic of how he's played lately. And then Quentin Jackson, he became a main playmaker last night. Played very, very well, and he was a pretty significant positive. So you look at how those guys respond to the increased responsibility, and as I frequently talk about, young players always say they want more. They want more minutes, they want more responsibility, they want more touches, they want more shots, and then they step into those situations and generally find out that there's a real level of increased difficulty. And the great thing about it is they have the opportunity to experience it on the one hand. On the other hand, they come to the realization, that it is real, and that kind of responsibility has to continue to be worked for.
Appreciate Rick Carlisle's time here on this Wednesday morning. Just a couple things left, if you don't mind, Coach. I was chatting with my dad actually over the weekend, and obviously Winter Olympics are getting ready to start, and he brought up the 1980 game between the U.S. and the Soviets from a hockey standpoint. And ironically, my dad proposed to my mom actually on that day. But I was thinking about you, and you grew up, I think, in a couple-hour drive from Lake Placid, and you were in college, if I'm not mistaken, during that 1980 Olympics. Do you remember anything about that game, the magnitude of it at the time, or do you feel like it's something that, almost has grown over the last, 40-some years?
Well, I do think it has grown. I remember it very vividly. I was a freshman at the University of Maine. I had a yellow Panasonic 12-inch black and white TV that operated off an antenna, and was watching the game in my dorm room at Hancock Hall at the University of Maine. And, I was completely compelled by the entire thing. When you look back at the history of all that and the Cold War and how great that the Soviet hockey team had been for so many years, and a lot of us, no internet back then, none of that. So a lot of us didn't know that much about the Soviet hockey team. But then you get to the Olympics, and I think it must have been ABC that was doing the Olympics, because it was Al Michaels, and they do such a good job of educating people that are watching the Olympics with all their features and all that kind of stuff. And then, years later, decades later, the movie Miracle chronicled everything so vividly. It was almost, like reliving it, watching the movie. but I know the arena that is still there. I don't know. I would think that they probably do tours of the locker room that the USA team was in and stuff like that. I don't know that for sure. A lot of friends of mine over the years have told me that they were at the game, and it was one of those moments in history where, where were you when this happened? And, I was in Hancock Hall looking at my lousy TV, watching it in black and white.
It was funny. I watched, obviously, Miracle, like you said. Netflix has got a documentary out about it right now. I watched it the other day, and the Al Michaels call, kind of the lead into that game, just created chills for me now in 2026. Looking back on it, I thought he did an unbelievable job just like educating the audience on what we were about to watch and the magnitude of it, much more than just a hockey game. Okay, as we close things out, I know the Drive and Dish Initiative had another announcement this week. I believe last night, 14 3-pointers for you, and that means a whole lot of eggs, right, to those with food insecurities?
Absolutely. 3 great partners, Hatch, MPS Farms, and Kroger, are donating a bunch of eggs. So if we continue on the pace we're at, which is like 13 threes per game, there will be over 112,000 eggs donated to Drive and Dish. And one of the things you learn about food insecurity as you get into the effort and study, the needs of folks out there in the community is that eggs can be a real luxury because there's a freshness aspect to it, et cetera, et cetera. So the ability to have this kind of availability is really awesome. And we have another huge announcement that's going to happen tomorrow, the 5th. Another engagement with a sponsor for Drive and Dish, which we'll announce tomorrow after practice. So, Kevin, expect you to be there, brother.
There you go. We'll keep an eye out for that, certainly, and great efforts in what you're doing there with those partners in Drive and Dish. Coach, as always, we appreciate the time.
All right, guys, take care.
Rick Carlisle, Payless Liquors hotline. Again, nothing on the floor for the Pacers until Friday night. Sounds like, based off what he said there, they will practice tomorrow, and that NBA trade deadline, 3 o'clock on Thursday.
Well, there you have it, Kevin. You asked about the trades, and he said no, a couple of times, and obviously that means nothing's going to happen.
No.
Boy, I should let you all in on how this kind of goes down. We'll be talking to Rick Carlisle, and then Kevin will give me the look like, hey, I got to ask, this question. Be prepared for a quick follow-up because I don't know how this is going to go. And I got to give you credit, KB. I appreciate you taking one for the team, brother, because nobody gets beat up more than you on some of these segments.
I know Kevin Pritchard has mentioned when you guys get to this time of the year, if there are players in trade talks, you like to alert players of that so they're not caught off guard. Have you had to alert any players of that this week?
No.
Are you expecting a move by 3 o'clock tomorrow?
I can't say I appreciate the question, but I acknowledge the question.
That may have been an answer from a different time.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
How would you compare that one to the invite to the Notre Dame Virginia game one from last week? That was not a definite no, right? Was that the audio that he?
I still think you circle back when that time comes. He said he didn't think it was going to happen, but check his schedule, I would say.
So would you say was that more of a no, or was the trade deadline more of a no?
Oh, the trade deadline for sure.
So do we believe Rick Carlisle? There are no moves coming by 3 o'clock tomorrow?
I take it with a grain of salt, Kev.
I believe his answer earlier in the week to trade deadline questions was, I say the same thing every year. I don't expect anything to happen.
Honestly, I respect him for even saying that. That's pretty funny.
You'd be legitimately surprised when it does happen, right?
Do you remember when he announced that Tristan Thompson had got bought out by the Bulls?
Mark plays the audio all the time. It was fun while it lasted audio.
Yeah, hilarious. So shout out to Rick. Sometimes he's the insider.
Hell, last night I thought they were going to have to dress Tristan Thompson and play him in the game.
Oh, Lord.
Start looking down the bench and getting a uniform ready for guys. All right, Mark, let's check things down.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by the Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. March starts here. The Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships with NCAA tournament bids online. March 8th through 10th. Tickets and more at horizonleague.com/Indy.
All right, we'll start with the trades that took place yesterday in the NBA, and some of them while the Pacers were playing last night. The Clippers have sent James Harden to Cleveland in exchange for Darius Garland. He goes to the Clippers. Celtics have picked up Nikola Vucevic in a trade for Anthony Simons. The Bulls, Pistons, and Timberwolves had a three-way deal. Jaden Ivey and Mike Conley end up in Chicago. How you feel about Jaden Ivey? That's not bad.
I like Jaden Ivey. I'm curious what his role is going to be. Like I said, the Bulls have like a baker's dozen of guards, so I expect some moves to happen before the deadline.
Jaden Ivey is an expiring contract, so,
enjoy him while you can.
We'll see what the future holds him.
It was fun while it lasted, Mark.
That's right.
Pacers last night were playing without Pascal Siakam, Benedict Mathurin, Andrew Nembhard, and T.J. McConnell. They chose to do that. Meanwhile, Utah only had 7 players available because they had taken part in a major trade on Wednesday as well with the Memphis Grizzlies. They sent George Niang, Kyle Anderson, Walter Clayton Jr., Taylor Hendricks to Memphis for Jaren Jackson Jr., Jock Landale, John Concher, and Vince Williams Jr. Everybody's still waiting to see if there's a big domino out of Milwaukee to fall before the trade deadline comes and goes.
Yeah, one quick thing about the Grizzlies, I wonder if they're just going to blow the whole thing up and get rid of John Morant within the next day or so as well. I would anticipate that's what you should do. And with Giannis, will that happen before the deadline or at all? Every time he talks, it sounds like he wants to be a Milwaukee Buck. But my guess is that a trade will not happen until the offseason. That's my bet.
All right, on the floor last night, Utah and their 7 men defeated the Indiana Pacers 131-122. Lauri Markkanen had 27 points. Isaiah Collier, Kevin, 22 assists. That's a big-time number, especially for a franchise that had John Stockton.
Yeah, he played every single minute last night, and I want to say the NBA said youngest player in the league to ever have a 20-assist game. So, yeah, quite the random night. Not a lot of memories from it, but I guess Isaiah Collier will have one.
Quentin Jackson and Jarris Walker each scored 24 for the Pacers. They will play again coming up on Friday at Milwaukee, and who knows what the Bucks are going to look like back then? Who knows what they're going to look like by Friday?
Yeah, a lot could change or a lot could be staying the same. Either way, I wonder if Miles Turner will still be in a Bucks uniform.
It's kind of sad. I've heard that version of no a few times in my life and other avenues of questions that I've maybe have asked people.
At least you ask them.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I needed that.
USC, a winner over Indiana late last night.
Particularly the sigh that Rick Carlisle had.
81-77, a game that ended, I think, just about midnight, just after midnight. You watched a good chunk of this, right?
I watched it all, yeah.
Were you up with the baby last night?
Yeah, under 8 timeout, Nelly and I had a little bottle action. But, at that point, it was kind of like, oh, boy, USC's built this lead to double figures. They had a wild technical that, honestly, I thought got Indiana back into it. But, it was one of those games where you needed one more shot. Conaway had a layup that I think would have cut it to 2 or 1, and some random dude off the bench for USC blocked his shot. Mm-hmm. That was a huge, huge play there late. So, again, the issues for Indiana last night, just Lamar Wilkerson showed up scoring-wise, rebounding, defending without fouling. Those were the problems. So, missed opportunity. USC's down their leading scorer. Their best player got hurt early in the second half, didn't return to the game. So, definitely an opportunity, but still, if you'd have told Darren DeVries last Wednesday after the Purdue win, you would split the West Coast trip, he would have signed up for it.
Yeah, 33 for Wilkerson, you mentioned. After that, though, 6 for Dorn. Only 3 for Connor Enright last night. Reed Bailey held to 8 points in just 18 minutes. Just couldn't get that going, and they end up getting the loss in that one. They did pull to within 75-73 late, though. It was getting close. They did get to within 2 with 30 seconds to go. But then, as you described, things just kind of went off the track there. All right, tonight, Butler will play at Providence. Notre Dame goes up against Louisville. That also on the road. And it looks like now that we have a race set up in the nation's capital for August 23rd, IndyCar The team that owns the Capitals, Wizards, and Mystics, called Monumental Sports and Entertainment, is the official promotional partner now. So everything is on board. Everything seems to be complete for that race.
Speaking of racing, how about Lindsey frickin' Vaughn? Is she really going to get in the starting gate with a torn ACL coming up here on Sunday?
She seemed resolute in her press conference yesterday. Did you catch any of that, James?
Yeah, I didn't catch the press conference, but I read a bunch of stories about it and read her quotes about how she's been through a lot of this stuff before. I mean, she retired because of injuries a few years ago, came out of retirement, and she said, I'm paraphrasing here, but I know my body and the limits of it. And I was thinking, boy, I know my limits as well. And usually when the knee starts to bother me, I'm sitting down.
Is that sport, downhill skiing, has got to be up there for riskiest individual sports out there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
Right?
any of the people who are in like the skiing and snowboarding world, that venue or that arena, I think you're just, by the time you're her age or you're in your early 20s, you've broken pretty much every bone you can imagine.
As soon as they do the camera shot from the gate and they look down the hill, it's just like, dude, get me in the lodge and let me have a cold one, or maybe a warm one.
Your margin for error is so slim in a sport like that, which is why I respect her for even trying to go out there and compete. I mean, she's the favorite if she's even relatively close to her health as far as bringing home another gold medal. So we'll see.
And for those that haven't followed the story, tore ACL just a week or so ago training.
Yeah.
And now here she is going to give it a go with a knee brace on coming up this weekend. So opening ceremonies begin, I believe, Friday.
Was it training or was it like
in Cortina?
The last World Cup race? Remember the first four?
Yeah.
She got hurt. Two other skiers got hurt. And they said, no, we're shutting this course down
I guess
today.
they had like bad visual out there trying to make that happen. So, yeah, you would imagine if you're Lindsey Vaughn, like, hey, how about you call this before I tear my ACL? But nevertheless, she'll be there. And our boy, Zach Kiefer, will be there as well. He's making the trip overseas and going to cover the Winter Olympics for the Athletic.
All right. That's what's going on in the world of sports right now. Anything else you guys want to add very quickly before we
I'll throw
head
this
to break
in
here?
really quick. Kenny Moore II is the Walter Payton Man of the Year for the Colts. To put a story out today talking about some of his work over at Cardinal Ritter High School. And the league-wide winner for that award will be announced tomorrow during the NFL awards ceremony out in San Francisco. So obviously a lot of folks here rooting for Kenny Moore, who, by the way, a 3-time winner of the Walter Payton Man of the Year for the Colts specifically, the most in team history.
It's pretty good. Jake Arthur coming up in a moment. What are you looking forward to asking him about?
All types of things. Honestly, I want to hear how the Senior Bowl went for him. Are there any players the Colts should be targeting?
All right, we'll do that next as we continue on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Got a lot of good comments coming in today on the fan text line. We'll get to that in about 10, 15 minutes. In the meantime, let's talk some Indianapolis Colts football. There's a lot to be looked at and a lot to be done during this offseason. But where do you start? What do you do? And how do you make money and room for it all? To give us some insight as to what might be going on, we talked to our next guest, Jake Arthur. He's the host of the great podcast Locked On Colts, and he joins us now here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Good morning, Jake. Are you getting ready for full-blown free agent combine season over the next 30, 60 days?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's funny because people always ask us what we do in the off-season, and it's like that's probably the busiest time of year, to be honest with you.
Well, Jake, I look forward to seeing you a lot more often here in the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure all of us will be running around trying to look at different prospects throughout the NFL Scouting Combine. Now, for you, though, I believe you got more of a preview than all of us by making the trip down to the Senior Bowl, and it's one of your favorite events. So I will encourage everyone, by the way, to go read his piece here on Roundtable Sports about the Colts. He put out about 1,500 words about these different prospects. So I know some might not read all of that, Jake, but who are some players that stood out to you that overlap with some of the areas of need here in Indianapolis?
Yeah, that's fair, obviously. But the Colts need really anything on defense, especially in the front seven. And this does appear to be a pretty good draft in that area. And I wouldn't say this is a draft with a ton of like blue chip talent. So honestly, if the Colts are not going to have a first round pick, then having picks on day two isn't so bad. You got guys who really stood out like Zion Young from Missouri, Derek Moore from Michigan that are probably in range for them there at in round 2, round 3. Gabe Jacas as well from Illinois, James. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Right, yeah. So I thought he stood out pretty well. You got the big guys, too. You know, DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, they're both going to be 32 to start the year, and Buckner's coming off the neck injury. So wise money says you should probably invest in the future there. A guy like Lee Hunter is just a space eater, but he's pretty nimble for his size out of Texas Tech. And then Caleb Banks is enormous. It's like he's got DeForest Buckner's height with Grover Stewart's girth. You know what I mean? Like he's just an enormous player. And then you look at linebacker. Obviously, they need more playmaking there. They only had 3 turnovers from linebackers last year, and they were all from Jermaine Pratt. I mean, Latu and Grover Stewart together had more than that. So it got a guy like Kyle Lewis out of Pittsburgh, who would be perfect for them, I think. You just plop him at the will linebacker spot and let him work in space and make plays. And then Bryce Betcher from Oregon, I thought was another really good player that would fit them well. All these guys are good in coverage, which was a pretty big issue down the stretch for the Colts.
I had seen where Kalen Black from Indiana got some nice reviews for his route running ability enhanced. Any idea how Indiana guys did?
Yeah, so Black wound up being the only one there. Obviously, with the national championship guys having just played the week before, most of them pulled out. But Black was the IU player that was there, and he did look pretty good. He looked like the well-rounded prospect I think we would all expect. Really showed out in the one-on-one drills as a pass catcher. I thought looked decent in pass protection as well, which is that and special teams as a rookie running back is always going to kind of be the things that get you on the field as a rookie, unless you're like a first-round pick. But no, I thought Black looked really good. He ran behind a pretty good offensive line there in practice as well that opened up some good holes. So if he tests well at the combine, he's probably looking to be one of the earlier running backs taken. It's not like an awesome group this year, but I could find him being within the top like 5 or 6 running backs in this draft. He's had a pretty good start to the offseason so far.
As we sit here now, I just picture Jake, the way our room is set up over at the Colts facility, he's right behind me, and I can hear his voice already, getting a little high pitched, and he slams the table because some player that he thought was going to be pretty good did not get selected by the Colts. And usually,
pick 189.
I know we fast forward like 6 months, and then that guy is like the special teams player of the week on whatever team, whatever. He's like, I told you guys. So when I tell you he's legit, he is legit. To go back to the linebacker conversation for a second here, Jake, kind of put you on the spot here. Do you think it's more likely that both linebackers are gone versus just keeping one? Now, I know Zaire Franklin's under contract. Jermaine Pratt is a free agent, but you just mentioned, hey, Jermaine Pratt actually had your linebacker turnovers, whereas Zaire Franklin did not. So how do you see that room unfolding here in the near future?
Yeah, I feel like stuff like that is like the last thing we need to see from Chris Ballard to really believe that he is turning over a new leaf is kind of the severing ties with guys that he's drafted and developed over the years. It's one thing if you're just going to like let a free agent walk because they have a market, but to cut them before their contract is up, we don't really see that from him a lot. So I think I have to see that before I believe it when it comes to Zaire Franklin, even though you free up about $5 million in doing so. And I think they're going to need about every penny they can create this offseason. I think it would probably be wise to go ahead and just revamp the linebacker room because it appeared to be pretty evident that these guys are maybe not the best fit for Lou Anarumo's defense. But with that said, I would imagine it's just Jermaine Pratt that finds the exit. It felt like he already kind of had a goodbye post on Instagram recently with Lou Anarumo. At least that's how it felt to me. But if they wanted to overhaul linebacker, I think that would be wise. But I think more likely is we just see a new will linebacker, probably drafted, I would have to say, because Chris Ballard, I mean, he for what he can miss in the draft, he usually does hit on linebacker. But I would imagine one of the two gets replaced.
Deciphering Instagram posts. Welcome to the offseason. Here we are. Jake Arthur doing yeoman's work. Great work he does. Locked on Colts, I should say, is a wonderful listen. Him and Zach Hicks spearheading that. Shout out Derek Schultz. Shout out, what's my Notre Dame running back's name, Jake? Alan
Pinkett.
Alan Pinkett. Thank you. On that end. Okay, what needs to happen this offseason for offense to be a possibility with the round 2 pick?
I think they have to lose Alec Pierce.
What about Pittman?
I mean, it still would almost feel too rich to do that in round 2, don't you think? Like with how much they need on defense. Now, it wouldn't be the end of the world. There's players worth getting, like Malachi Fields from Notre Dame, for example, Kevin. He had an awesome week in Mobile, and I kind of fell in love. I'm having to tell myself they don't need to do that in round 2. But yeah, I think
he's got some Pierce in him in terms of the 50-50 balls.
What's that?
He's got some Pierce in him in terms of the 50-50 stuff.
Yeah, he caught this really good diving, like 55, 60-yard catch last week. That was like, okay, wow, that's something the Colts could use downfield. But no, I think if they lose Alec Pierce, that would be a huge problem, and they would need to fill that. They could probably manufacture what they would lose in Michael Pittman a little easier if they decide to move on from him. Not that he's just this easily replaceable guy, but Pierce is elite at what he does. Like he's led the league in yards per catch 2 years in a row. You know, he's clearly the best deep threat in the NFL. So I think they could probably replace Pittman a little further down the line, or maybe even in free agency with some cheaper options. Although that's not really where I would go because free agency is out of control with receivers. But yeah, that's about it because they're not going to let Daniel Jones go. I think they've already kind of hedged their bets on that. They're probably going to be willing to match whatever price for him. So yeah, I think Alec Pierce leaving would be about the only thing.
All right, I'll ask you on the way out the one thing I asked the guys earlier today. If you had to rank the 3 quarterbacks right now when we get to OTAs, what's the depth chart look like?
Oh, man. So Jones will be your starter. I've got to think Riley is the backup. I think he showed enough to be the long-term backup by this point. It doesn't make a lot of sense for me for Anthony to still be there from both sides. If I was him, I'd probably want a fresh start too. And then I think they probably just need to move on from us asking about why it failed all the time as well. So I think the third quarterback is probably not on the roster right now.
Fair enough. Jake, thanks as always. We appreciate your time. People can check you out anywhere you can get your podcasts at Locked On Colts. So we appreciate you being here and spending some time with us.
Of course. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jake.
Jake Arthur joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline right there. Coming up in a moment, we'll get some feedback from all of you at 239-1070 on the Fan text line as we continue on a Wednesday morning. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
We Grow Hair Indy. They're the gold standard when it comes to hair restoration. And you owe it to yourself as we are in to the new year. I've heard from many people out there that have had questions, curiosity about, what my experience was like at We Grow Hair Indy. Certainly I share that, but I also make sure I highly, highly encourage people out there, just contact them. First off, they're great people. Very easy to talk to. Darren Andrews, super personable, but also you're going to get education. You're going to get information that you need. It's better than pulling up some Instagram ad, clicking on it and be like, oh, this looks like something that makes sense to me. No. Go with the best in the business. And they just happen to call the 317 home. That, again, is We Grow Hair Indy. Northwest side, that would be building number 2 at the Pyramids. And again, that website, wegrowhairindy.com. Free evaluation awaits, private evaluation awaits, virtual evaluation. If any of that serves you, then make sure you contact them today. We Grow Hair Indy, the gold standard for hair restoration. The Daisy brand, the French onion dip, the ranch dip, they are winners. And let's be honest, you might have a gathering coming up on Sunday for the old game. Make sure you got the Daisy brand, the chips, the wings, the veggies. I don't care what the little sidekick is. The French onion dip and the ranch dip are excellent. Hell, don't take my word for it. Mark Dykton is a big fan of it.
Love it.
Say no more right there. You head to the local grocery, you find the French onion dip, you find the ranch dip, and you will be the life of the party. Chips, wings, veggies, real herbs and spices, ingredients you'd find in your own kitchen. Thank you to the Daisy brand for the French onion dip and the ranch dip.
listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
It was a blast from the past, Mark Dykton.
The Muppets are back tonight. I'm very excited.
You've got
They're
the
going to get me
girls-
to watch network television for the first time in forever.
You going to gather up all three girls and park them in front of the TV?
Yeah, I've tried to educate them. The youngest loves Muppet Babies on Disney Junior. So I'm like, hey, you want to watch the adult Muppet Show? We're going to watch that tonight.
All right, 239-1070, number to either call or get in on the text line. And as I checked the fan text line this morning, legally, I might add, by the way, I believe. I didn't know it was illegal yesterday. But Kevin Bowen and Rick Carlisle says, Aaron from Minnesota, your interactions are like Craig Sager and Greg Popovich from a while back. I think that was a compliment. You never know what's going to...
like Craig Sager? Do you have any red suits somewhere and red socks?
Can't see Craig Sager wearing, I don't know, maybe he did have this type of sweatshirt back in the day, or wear my 1950 throwback Notre Dame sweatshirt. You know what? Rick Carlisle does a very fascinating job of saying no in different ways.
He'll get over it.
Mark, if you could cut maybe all the no clips here recently, acknowledging the question. I believe he said, I'm going to let the urge pass last week when asked about.
I appreciate the question, but I acknowledge the question.
And then today you had a long sigh when he said no.
Yeah, that one felt like, I would imagine how it is with you all being parents. You get the no on the sigh. Yeah, the sigh right there, that's a,
Mark, one more time on that sigh.
No.
That part of it.
When do you let out a hearty sigh, Mark?
Oh, that was like me yesterday when I had the girls all to myself, and I must have gotten barraged by like 10 questions in a row. Like, Daddy. I'm like, what? I'm right here. What?
By the way, I will say, and I brought up to Rick Carlisle, and Mark brings up some appointment television in the Dykton household. I was a little curious. I had heard great things about the Netflix documentary on the 1980 U.S. hockey team, but I was curious how similar would it be to Miracle, from a movie standpoint. I really, really, really enjoyed the watch last night. Herb Brooks is probably the one featured the most. Obviously, no longer with us, but his son and his daughter, very prominent in the documentary, and really all the players that are still alive had key roles. They brought them in, not to ruin it too much, but they bring them into the arena and they watch a lot of the footage they have from 1980 up on the Jumbotron, which I think is a really cool way to do it. So very much enjoyed it. And I mean, Jeff, again, I said to, Rick earlier, for my dad, obviously he proposed to my mom on that day. So it has a lot of meaning,
Wow.
but when growing up, I don't know if we have we don't have a sporting event, I guess is just the easiest way to put it, that equates to that. But just like hearing Rick Carlisle, his memories, I don't know if you have any memories as well. And the story too, like the Soviets beat us 10-3, 2 days before the Olympics started.
Right during the week leading up to it, yeah.
At Madison Square Garden. And then, less than 2 weeks later, we shocked the world.
I remember I was in high school at the time, and I can remember that day they actually showed the game live. It was the middle of the afternoon in the Mountain Time Zone. They showed it again on prime time later on that night on ABC. And, of course, Al Michaels had the great call. But I remember going to my girlfriend was on the girls' basketball team, and a bunch of buddies and I went to their game, and just repeatedly and randomly during that basketball game, there were maybe 800 people, 1,000 people there. And just randomly at intermittent times out of nowhere, USA, USA, USA. It was like that over the entire country. You saw all these news reports on the national news, which was still a big thing back then, and they would just show videos from all around the country. People just USA, USA, and it was random. It was coming right off a lot of political problems that we had been having with Iran. Country wasn't feeling that great about themselves. And then that happened, and the country just kind of came together again for a while. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, they definitely they definitely focused a lot on how the team was assembled, which again wasn't something that I had realized. Herb Brooks' history with Team USA as well is a part of it. So I thought it was a great watch, and the Al Michaels intro. I mean, I got some chills just hearing it, and he had a great line in there about to a lot of you watching right now, you don't know the difference between a clothesline versus a blue line, obviously referencing hockey there, but this matters more than just two teams on a sheet of ice. And that right there, when he brought in Ken Dryden, I think kind of set the whole mood for, what was such a monumental event, certainly not just here in the United States.
We
trying to
did
think of-
a family vacation to Canada, and we came down through upstate New York, and we stopped at the Lake Placid
Did you
Arena.
really?
And we
Oh, that's
saw
dope.
it when I was younger. And I don't know if they still do it, but they outside the arena, they're playing the Al Michaels broadcast. Like you could step right near the arena. You're like, do you believe in miracles? And it was
Did you
really-
go in?
No, we didn't go in. It was closed that day, but I don't know if they actually still do tours or not. But it was awesome to see.
I mean, this is a different discussion, but like to me, I find it wild that Lake Placid hosted a Winter Olympics. I mean, when you look at it on a map, I mean, it's
just a little tiny town.
It's like 2 hours from where Rick Carlisle grew up, and Rick grew up pretty much on the New York Canada border there. I mean, super upstate. So that aspect I thought was cool. They did show a little bit of that in the documentary as well.
Another reminder, too, that was not the gold medal game. That was the semifinal game. USA still had to win one more game after that in the championship.
And they were
round.
down going in the third period of the gold medal match.
I think that was Norway, right?
Finland.
Finland. It was Finland, yeah. But yeah, that's the thing. You don't even hardly remember the gold medal game because that semifinal was everything.
It's like that, the Buckner game, the Bartman game, all those games you think are decisive games, and they weren't really. But because of the impact they had,
Moving
in sports
on.
lore.
So the Patriots and the Colts had this in
Exactly.
the AFC Championship game
Yeah.
years ago. I'm very curious, like, what are some of your top Olympic moments? I know we got to hit a break here soon, but something to think about.
I always think of,
perhaps.
I'll throw in one. I always think of the Phelps relay. Jason Lezak, I believe, was the final anchor when he had to win. He had to get to the 8 gold medals in Beijing.
Yeah.
And that call, Dan Hicks and Rowdy Gaines, I still have chills thinking about. And Rowdy Gaines, shout out to him. He was, very candid throughout all his calls. He made it very clear early in that race the French were going to win. And the U.S. was not. Phelps had already touched the wall. Lezak, this kind of old grizzly vet, got into the pool and, caught if I'm not mistaken, like the world record winner from France to win it. And Phelps's reaction, that's certainly one. Honestly,
you don't see that in swimming.
No, and one of my early sports memories is Kerry Strug in the 96 Olympics in Atlanta with
Bum ankle.
I was going to say heavily taped ankle sticking that landing. I mean, I was 7 years old, I guess. I actually do remember where I was, or at least, sitting in my, parents' family room watching that. So, yeah, that's the topic we can get into here before the opening ceremony is coming up on Friday.
All right. Speaking of coming up, Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News is going to join us in just a few moments. Talk some college basketball, get his perspective on, despite the loss last night, a resurgent Indiana team and a Purdue team ready to bounce back and make their run. We'll talk about it next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
I swear one of these days we'll be outside again enjoying it. And from a hospitality standpoint, how about some new concrete here in 2026? You might laugh at that, but I'm dead serious. Patio, porch, sidewalk, Galaxy Concrete Coatings. They've got you covered there. And I think you'll be very, very happy with what the results look like. New sidewalk, new front porch at the Bowen household. Boy, we're probably going on 3 or 4 years now. And I'm thrilled with the results. Nice reminder when I shoveled the snow off of it last week. Oh, yeah, it does look very, very pristine under there. So, again, it's indoor and outdoor concrete. It's galaxyconcretecoatings.com. Think garages, basements, patios, porches, sidewalks. Manufacturers upgrade the warranty from 15 years to lifetime. So I love that aspect of it as well. Again, indoor and outdoor concrete, basements, garages, patios, porches, sidewalks, Galaxy Concrete Coatings today.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
He's Kevin Bone on the left. That's James Boyd on the right. Mark Dykton, we keep behind closed doors and the big sheet of glass between us. It's always better that way. I'm Jeff Rickard, and we turn to the Payless Liquors hotline right now. We welcome in the president of the Mike McCarthy Fan Club, longtime Pittsburgh Steeler fan, Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, joining us this morning. I know you're excited for the upcoming season already, Mike.
Oh, ready to go, Jeff.
I don't hear enthusiasm in your voice.
There is it's funny. There's this TV show we do locally, a guy I went to college with who became sort of the voice of Pittsburgh sports. And it's on Sunday nights, and they had me in. And it's a 3-person panel. It rotates different sports writers and sportscasters. And I was in. And everybody's like, yeah, I'm all on board. And I'm like, no. I kept waiting for somebody to say, who's the drip on the left who doesn't like this hire?
Mike DeCourcy sounds like Rick Carlisle answering trade deadline questions from me about 30 minutes ago with his enthusiasm over Mike DeCourcy, or over Mike McCarthy, I should say. Mike DeCourcy with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Mike, always enjoy our convo, so we appreciate you making time. In your latest bracketology, we'll start here. You've got Purdue on the 4 line. I feel like I've mostly seen them currently maybe on the 3 line. Is that obviously it's better resumes around them. Is there something on the resume that in particular you didn't like that pushed them down a line, or you just think it's a pretty deep year at the top of the bracket?
It is a very deep year, and I certainly could have had them as a 3. There's a lot of really strong teams at the top of the field. Those first 4 lines really are outstanding. And so it's not a far trip for them to get back to 3. probably be a bit of a hike to get to the 2 line at this point. But the one thing that the Big Ten provides you is opportunities, especially if you look at the Big Ten schedule, you look at the Big 12 schedule, those 2 leagues in particular did a really great job of concentrating what might be their biggest games in February, and they did a good job of figuring out, that these are going to be the teams. These are going to be the ones, Purdue, Michigan State, et cetera. The only one that no one really saw coming was Nebraska. And so there's a lot of intersection among the best teams in the Big Ten coming up in February. It's going to make for a fantastic finish, and it's going to give Purdue lots of opportunities to go back to a 3 or a 2. And I think their seeding right now is not an issue. It's really more about getting back to being the team that they were in the first 3 months of the season, the first 2.5 months, and what they certainly are capable of being.
Mike, when I look at your bracketology, and again, going back to Purdue, everyone I feel like in Lafayette, at least before they got back on the winning side of things, was saying that the sky was falling. Oh my God, is Purdue going to do this again? They're going to break my heart. Do they have enough, you think, to get to a Final Four?
Yes, certainly. To win it, I've always been on the opposite side of a lot of analysts. I know Jeff Goodman in particular at Field of 68 was very much all in on Purdue winning it. And my answer every time somebody said that was, okay, who's the NBA guy? Who's the first-round pick? Because, I know Indiana fans know the answer to this, but look back over the history of the NCAA tournament and the teams that win it and find me the teams that didn't have a first-round pick in their rotation, and usually more than one, that won it. And the list is like one team. It's 87 Indiana, and pretty much you have to go past the UCLA dynasty to even think about somebody else. And so I looked at Purdue's roster, and I love their team, and I love their coaching staff, and they've got great college players, but that just doesn't happen. And so I've always been on the side that says, Final Four, but I'd have to see it happen in terms of winning the last 2. And so I certainly think they're capable of doing this. But there are a lot of other teams that are capable. They had their best team to win the championship in a year when UConn was spectacularly good, one of the great championship teams of this century. And it was bad timing for the Boilers. And to an extent, this is some bad timing because there's so many terrific teams in the Big 12, Arizona, Kansas, Texas Tech, Houston, BYU, and then in the Big Ten, the teams I mentioned, and then in the ACC, Duke and Carolina. And there are just a lot of fantastic teams. So it's going to take a tremendous performance to get there. If this Purdue team were a year ago, they would have had a much less difficult, I don't want to say more comfortable, a much less difficult ride to get to the Final Four than they will this year.
Mike DeCourcy joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline right now. We saw Indiana lose at USC last night. Only one player in double figures there with Wilkerson getting 33. First time Nick Dorn has been really cool. He was 2 for 12 from the floor. What does his addition mean for Indiana in the grand scheme of things? How good can they be?
Well, it certainly has meant that they're back in the NCAA tournament picture. And before he exploded in the last few weeks, they were pretty much they weren't out of it, but they were not a team that had a great horizon that you said, okay, they're going to make it. But then they go out and they beat Purdue and UCLA, Purdue at home, UCLA on the road, and get 2 quad 1 wins when they had only had 1 in the entire season prior to that. So his ascension has really made a huge difference. And I thought, he didn't play great last night, but I thought the Hoosiers played reasonably well. It was a tough break for them that Elijah Arenas finally becomes healthy and ready after missing a lot of the season with injury and then sort of working his way back into it over the last 2-3 weeks. And then all of a sudden, I'm ready to go now. And he just completely dominated the last 10 minutes and scored 29 for the game. He's really talented, hard to play against. And Indiana, for what they do well, shoot the basketball, share it, move it to where it needs to be, they're not a great defensive team. They're not built to be a great defensive team. And somebody that talented starts to get it going, they're going to have a tough time shutting that down.
And TSN Mike on Twitter, Mike DeCourcy, always enjoy our combos with him, especially this time of year. Mike, one of the stories of college basketball this season has been Miami of Ohio. They have a ton of Indiana flavor, not only on the roster, but in particular their coaching staff. They did beat Buffalo last night, probably one of the more difficult MAC games left on the schedule. What do you see from a bracket standpoint with them? If they were to slip up and not get the automatic bid out of the MAC, are they still a tournament team? Do you see anything from an Indiana State comparison from a couple years back?
It depends on the nature of the slip up, how profound it is. Do they just lose one? When do they lose? Who do they lose to? There are a lot of different variables still at this stage of the season. I'm disappointed that when I look at the bracket matrix and I'm looking at Indiana, and like as we look at it, we're supposed to basically do it as this is what it would be if it were Selection Sunday. So I realize that they're 23-0 or 24-0 now, not 34 or 35-0. But we have to look at it like that. And it's not like 6-0 either, right? It's like we're way into this, and they're still undefeated. And I'm like the only person that has Miami as a single-digit seed, just about. Their projected consensus to be an 11. I mean, they're undefeated in a solid mid-major conference. I understand like that if you look at it, the Ken Palm numbers aren't great or whatever, but they are undefeated. The last time we had an undefeated team in a mid-major conference, they were a 1 seed. That was Wichita in 2014. The time before that, Atlantic 10 wasn't quite a mid-major in 2004, but it wasn't a high major either. And St. Joe's, they did it, and they were a number 1 seed. And so I just don't see how you can have them as a double-digit seed at this stage of this. If they are a team that is undefeated going into the tournament, they absolutely should be a more prominent seed. I understand even if they do this, they probably wouldn't be a 1, but they sure as heck shouldn't be an 11. It's not fair to them, and it's not fair to the team that's the 6. Why should you have to play an undefeated team if you play yourself to one of the top 25 positions in this bracket? Why should you have to play an undefeated team in your first round? That's not logical. That team knows how to win. I'm frustrated by that a little bit, but I would like to shout out Suter's father. His Peter Suter is a terrific player for the Red Hawks. His father, Rick, lives in Carmel. I covered him some when he was in high school. That's how far I go back. He played in Western Pennsylvania in high school when I was working for the Pittsburgh paper. So I have a little special connection to what Mr. Suter is doing over in Miami.
And he's put up some big-time numbers for them. Bellarmine, where he began, and now he's been at Miami of Ohio with Travis Steele and company. Justin Kirby, Fisher's kid, coming off the bench for the Red Hawks.
Yeah. Mike, you ever covered an Olympics in all your time?
I covered, it's funny, I covered 2 Summer Olympics, and it was 92 in Barcelona, which was spectacular, and then in Atlanta in 96. And this is a true story, Jeff. Right around, I think it was around 1988 when I was 4, 5, 6 years into my career. And I remember seeing all the different writers saying, man, I want to go to the Winter Olympics, and kind of jockeying to be that person. And I was sitting there thinking, it's cold. They don't play any sports where they actually play against each other except hockey. It's all racing against the clock. So I set it as a goal. I never wanted to cover the Winter Olympics. That became a goal. And I have achieved that to this point. So I am proud.
You're missing some seriously intense hockey, my man.
I do love the hockey, and will enjoy watching it over the next few weeks. And I'll watch the rest of it because my wife loves the Olympics and she loves the figure skating. But I don't mind watching it from the comfort of my couch. But out in the cold, my guy, Pat Forty, I think, is going over to Milan, and he can have it, man. He's welcome to it.
Always good to talk to you, buddy. Stay warm and dry up there.
I will do my best. Thanks, guys.
There he is. Mike DeCourcy on the Payless Liquors Hotline. I have so much fun talking to Mike. He and I essentially have kind of grown up in the business around, if not with each other, for a long time. So it's been fun to see that. I would have thought that he would have had more extensive Olympic experience because Sporting News for a long time there, they used him for everything. He was like their go-to guy for a long time for everything.
For one of your Olympics to be 92, I mean, isn't that the dream team year? So
that plucky underdog USA squad.
Yeah, man. I mean, even if you didn't have a chance to cover them, I just imagine the energy around all of that, in addition to the coverage he provided, had to be a cool experience and one of those bucket list type of moments.
Yeah, good stuff.
We have some NFL news.
Uh-oh.
Some former Colts news. You seeing this? The Jets are finalizing a deal with former Colts head coach Frank Reich to be their new offensive coordinator.
Shout out to Frank Reich. I think
Frank.
that he's a very good dude and has an opportunity to kind of rehab the image a little bit, I guess, after what took place here in Indianapolis and, the stops after that.
Yep.
So much for retirement for Frank right there. Andrew Luck, calls him when he's pushing the shopping cart at the grocery store and says, hey, man, we need you to be the interim out here at Stanford. And then now he's going to go Aaron Glenn, the head coach there. So, yes, Frank Reich will be calling the plays for the New York Jets, and we'll see what they do at quarterback here upcoming in 2026.
How many checks do you think he's still getting from different franchises and different places? Because, boy, shout out to Frank Reich, first ballot Hall of Famer at the bank, baby.
I was going to say that buyout with Carolina especially was huge with Dave Tepper.
It's got to be fun when those zip codes pop up in the mailbox. Oh, another check coming through. Here we go.
Yeah, you know what's funny, guys? I actually just had the opposite happen with my family. I was talking to my mom yesterday. She was like, yeah, here's something here for you in the mail, and it's a tax form, and I'll be owing again. I need to have some kids, so if you guys got recommendations on how to go about doing that, let me know.
You need to alter your deductions for one thing.
I don't know if that's the financial move you want. You see how much daycare costs?
I was going to say there are trade-offs, so they're not.
There are a lot of great benefits, but
we got 6 kids.
Finances, I don't think would be in the pro list.
We got how old your oldest, Mark? 6, 7?
No, she'll be 9 on March 19th.
Man, time flies. So we got 6 under 9.
Yeah,
with these two
I think
in here.
my oldest is about 10, but I ain't been around him much, so don't know for sure.
Are you aware?
Yeah, for a split second, I thought he was serious. I was like, damn, boy, he's waited like a year to tell us this.
Oh, my goodness gracious. We can talk about available. You were talking about the Jets and what do they do with Frank Reich now as a quarterback. There are some interesting quarterbacks on the market. We can talk about that a little bit later on. In the meantime, Mark, let's check it down.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by the Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. March starts here. The Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships with NCAA tournament bids on the line. March 8th through 10th. Tickets and more at horizonleague.com/Indy.
As we were talking about a moment ago, Ian Rappaport amongst the several folks nationally reporting that the Jets are hiring former Panthers and Colts coach Frank Reich as their new offensive coordinator under Aaron Glenn. Per the insiders, 1 year at Stanford there on the emergency call from Andrew Luck, and now he's back in the NFL, James.
I like Frank Reich. I think he's a very good dude, and we'll see if it works out in New York. But personally, I'm glad that you sign and you get the money first, because I think everything always goes awry with the Jets, unfortunately.
Big stories out of the NFL yesterday at Super Bowl week. We had the lightly watched and discussed flag football game last night. Kevin and I didn't see any of that. Did you catch any of it?
I did. It was riveting for all the wrong reasons.
Were you just hoping nobody got hurt play to play?
I don't know what I was hoping. Again, it was on in the background while I was washing dishes and stuff like that. It was pretty bad, though. I mean, that's a bad product, and degenerates like me are the reason why I guess it's on TV.
A day after Roger Goodell addressed the media with his State of the NFL speech that he gives every year during this week, the NFLPA came out with something yesterday saying the players have no appetite for an 18th regular season game. We'll see what happens when negotiations come around.
Yeah, and I would like to know how that appetite changes based off how much you're getting paid. If you're Justin Jefferson, you don't care about an 18th game. But if you're the last guy on the roster trying to scratch and claw your way in the NFL,
check, man.
A little different.
Yeah. All right, that's what's happening in the National Football League. NBA last night, Utah got a win over Indiana, 131-122. Both sides just looking deep into the bench and their rosters for players. Utah only played with 7 because they had made a trade with Memphis earlier in the day that sent 4 players, including former Pacer George Niang, to the Grizzlies for Jaren Jackson Jr., Jock Londell, John Concher, and Vince Williams Jr. Of the players that did play, Lauri Markkanen, no surprise he was leading scorer for the Jazz, and in the game, 27 points. But Isaiah Collier, 22 assists. It's hard to get 22 assists. We don't see 20-plus assists more than maybe, once every year or two, it feels like?
Yeah, you said Indiana versus Utah. It might have been the Noblesville Boom versus the Salt Lake City Stars or whatever Utah's G League team is. But, yeah, shout out Isaiah Collier. Played every minute last night. That might be more impressive than 22 assists.
Yeah. Pacers played without Siakam, Matherin, Nembhard, and McConnell. They were all getting rest or dealing with minor injuries there. And Quentin Jackson and Jarris Walker led the Pacers with 24 apiece. They will play at Milwaukee on Friday. Question is will Giannis Antetokounmpo still be a member of the Milwaukee Bucks? He's injured and wouldn't play anyway. But is he still going to be on the roster and on the bench Friday when they get there?
I say yes. That is my guess.
All right. Other
Matherin,
NBA...
Giannis, neither, both. Who's on the floor? Well, is Giannis still hurt?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still hurt.
Okay, who will still be on the rosters? Both, neither, one?
Both.
Well, Rick said no. He said no. You buying it?
I said both. What's your answer?
Neither. No, both. Oh, let's see. On the roster? Still on the roster?
Yes.
Yeah, both.
I don't know. It feels like there's smoke with the Matherin thing. It seems like there's just some smoke.
No.
I know, but I'm just if you're making this move because you think, well, I'll put it like this. If you're making this move to go get a center, I do not agree with that.
Let's discuss this more on the other side.
Okay.
I think it's an interesting point you bring up, James.
Other NBA trades yesterday, Clippers sent James Harden to Cleveland in exchange for Darius Garland. Celtics have picked up Nikola Vucevic in exchange for Anthony Simons. Bulls, Pistons, and Timberwolves had a 3-way deal. Jaden Ivey and Mike Conley end up going to Chicago, but are both of those salary dump situations, and they'll just move on at the end of the season, Mark Dykton?
Who knows? I don't know what the Bulls are doing, but they have a million guards, so I'm sure they're willing to trade a couple of them at least before the deadline, so we'll see what happens.
Just to lose to the Heat in the play-in, right?
I mean, that's a tale as old as time. Locked in the 9th or 10th seed.
USC defeated Indiana late last night in Big Ten play, 81-75 the final. Elijah Arenas, in his 5th game as a collegiate player, poured in 29 points. He had scored 30 in the previous 4 combined. He picked the wrong night to go off last night, Kevin. Not good.
He's got some clear skill and obviously an awful off-the-court incident earlier this year that has caused him to miss so much time. I think big picture, you still look at the Indiana road trip and you say, you split. That's what you wanted to do. But as that game played out, first off, it was very clear USC's not very good. They were without their leading scorer, and then their second leading scorer exited early in the second half. So if you would have presented that to Darren DeVries, you probably get greedy. You probably think, hey, we got an opportunity to get another one here. But awful shooting outside of Lamar Wilkerson, and particularly Tucker DeVries, and Reed Bailey continues to struggle. And then just defending without fouling, rebounding, those issues have probably been the most prevalent for Indiana this season. They popped up again last night.
Lose by 6. They'll host Wisconsin on Saturday. Tonight, Butler at Providence. You'll hear that game live at 93.5, 107.5 The Fan, beginning at 6:30, tip at 7. And then Notre Dame plays at Louisville. Still don't know if we've gotten the entire story of Kevin and his brother just about starting a melee one time when they went to that game.
Whoa.
I looked that up. So my brother picked me up from IU my freshman and sophomore years to go to Notre Dame at Louisville. They lost in overtime my freshman year, double OT my sophomore year.
You're having trouble with overtime games.
Well, and being in a road atmosphere, oh my gosh, man, those Louisville fans, they were just hammered at Freedom Hall.
You could say that every game, can't you, for Louisville fans?
Big one tonight.
I'd say that for a lot of fans, honestly.
We got to get back on track here. A couple other notes I was going to throw in there. I saw Indiana did lose their quarterbacks coach, Chandler Whitmer, going back to the NFL. Tino Sinceri, one of the few staff defections in the Kurt Cignetti era, he went to UCLA to go call plays. That did not go well this past season. He's coming back. So they still kind of keep it as in-house as you can imagine. And then one other thing, too. I saw the college football playoff announced their national title dates coming up. I mean, what are we doing?
We're into March yet?
January 25th.
Oh, we're we're getting there.
We have a 2-week break between the quarters and the semis, and then again semis for the title game. And I hated to see the note that the New Year's bowls, so think of, the Cotton Bowl and the, whatever, Orange Bowl and Sugar Bowl, et cetera, they're tied into those quarterfinal games for another 6 years. I want on-campus quarterfinal games. Indiana should have got a home game in the quarterfinal. I get the Rose Bowl was cool and all that, but I think you deserve a home game for getting one of the top 4 seeds. We'll continue to not get that in the college football playoff. I think that's a real bummer. I think that needs to be changed.
I don't disagree. Some girls' sectional scores from last night. Zionsville over Fishers 50-37. Hamilton Southeastern beat Westfield 60-46. And Plainfield got a win over Ben Davis in a fairly close game. Hannah Menser had 18 in that one, and they will play Brownsburg next. Anything else you want to throw in from this week, James?
Kenny Moore II is your Colts Walter Payton Man of the Year. That was announced in December, but the league-wide winner will be announced tomorrow in San Francisco. I would expect Kenny Moore to be in attendance. Got a story up on The Athletic about his work over at Cardinal Ritter High School. I went by there one day when he was doing his volunteer teaching thing, and it's very obvious that Kenny is very hands-on because he knew pretty much every kid by their first name. It was great.
Shout out to Kenny Moore in the second. He's really embraced this community incredibly well. Also, I'd add just Butler tonight on our airwaves again, 7 o'clock. At Providence. They are actually an underdog here, 3.5-point underdog. These two teams played a wild game back to start the conference season. Butler won in double OT. So UConn a week from Wednesday. If that game's going to have real meaning, then you got to win at Providence, at Marquette coming up Wednesday and Saturday.
Also, the Indianapolis Colts giving a shout out on social media to National Girls and Women in Sports Day. And they also have a picture of all 3 of the USA daughters on there. So enjoy National Women in Sports Day today. I like that. All right, coming up in a moment, we will have more discussion on what NFL teams might be looking for what and how does that affect the Colts. We'll talk about it next. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome into the Fan Morning Show. Talking about all kinds of things this morning. Of course, we had NBA basketball in the midst of trade season, and there's always a flurry of activity in the NBA leading up to the trade deadline in the last 48 hours or so. It kind of started off yesterday with the James Harden to Cleveland, Darius Garland going to the Clippers. The one that's interesting to me, Kevin, and I don't know if it means their guys coming back for a late run of the playoffs or not, but Celtics picking up Nikola Vucevic to really kind of fill a void that they've had in the middle of their front court for a while. That could be a scary team again moving forward.
Yeah, curious what it means for Jason Tatum potentially coming back this season. And then I guess just center market in general. James, I know that was the point you wanted to make last segment in regards to Benedict Mathurin and the potential acquisition of a center.
Sorry, I got distracted a little bit. I'm looking outside. Looks like some snow's coming down. I'm getting a little PTSD from last week.
I don't think it's sticking, though.
I'm thinking to myself, boy, the Honda Civic can only take so much snow. But
jumper cables, dust them off.
Kevin knows how to get you taken care of if it doesn't start one morning. You're good.
Hey, I do respect that, and I appreciate you guys. But getting back to Kevin's question, I think for me, when I look at the landscape of the NBA and how championship teams have been built, I don't know if I'm willing to part ways with a player in Benedict Mathurin, who I think still has a ton of upside, has proven that he is a valuable player as is. Even if he doesn't get any better, I still think he's a very good player right now, considering his role on the team. And am I willing to part ways with that to go get a center when center is not the position that you build around like you used to back in like the 80s? I'm not sure that I do that. And one of the points that one of our listeners made yesterday on the text line, I'm sorry for the name, kind of misses me right now, but the point that he made was, well, James, he pointed out that Tyrese can elevate pretty much any center. Offensively, we need a guy defensively. That is a very good point. But my thing is, are you willing to part ways with the level of offense that Benedict Mathurin gives you? And particularly when it comes to shot creation, drawing fouls, and putting pressure on defenses, is what he brings you more valuable, at least it is to me, than what you could get from a defensive center? I think you can find that guy a little bit easier than you can find a guy like Mathurin.
Yeah, I think those are some really good points. ESPN reported this yesterday in regards to the Pacers. For weeks, rival teams have spotlighted Indiana as a contender for pre-agency, adding talent now to help regain its elite status when Halliburton returns. Pacers continue to seek a long-term answer at center after Miles Turner left for Milwaukee. And with Benedict Mathurin headed for restricted free agency this offseason, the expectation among sources is that he could be moved either to acquire center help or to find a cheaper, longer-term wing option. James, I think you made a lot of really good points. Again, I have my hands raised. Obviously, I come from a very biased aspect when it comes to Mathurin. I also I feel the need to remind everybody he's 23 years old. Andrew Nembhard was that age when you drafted him. Benedict Mathurin is 23 years old. If you made a list of Pacers players in franchise history, age 20, 21, 22, 23, and compared their careers, I would argue Benedict Mathurin is right up there with just about any player in franchise history so far. And so if they are to make a move here in the next day, I would get it. Like, I understand it. They have a center need. This coming draft is loaded with wings by all accounts. He's an expiring contract. I get it. I just don't love it. I don't love it. I think he's a unique player to your roster, and I think we've viewed that negatively. All I hear is, well, he doesn't fit. He doesn't fit. He doesn't, blah, blah, blah. Well, I would argue he provides a trait that you don't have. Mm-hmm. This team does not get to the foul line. Certainly nowhere near the level that other teams do. And Mathurin does that. And when things stall out, he's a unique bucket getter. And sure, there's volatility to his game. And, there's times you probably want him to make one more extra pass, but I just don't see the benefit. I think, James, you put it out pretty well. Like, acquiring a center of what you would want does not lead to the Mathurin exit.
Not to me. And I go back to what Rick Carlisle, I believe he said this during the finals last year, Kevin, and a lot of the conversation, I think at that point, was about Halliburton and his unique rise and how they had kind of built this team around sort of a star that many people had kind of slept on. I think if you go back and look at that trade with the Kings, a lot more teams would be in on it had they known Tyrese Halliburton would be who he is. One of the things that Carlisle said at that moment was that even coaches can do it. You can get caught up in thinking about what a player can't do versus what they can do.
Right.
And I get that Matherin can be frustrating at times. He can have tunnel vision. There are times where I'm like, it is not Matherin time. You need to pass the rock a little bit and get off the ball quicker. But there are also times where I'm like, man, this guy can bail you out in moments when you need it. And I just wonder, when the Pacers get back into playoff contention with Halliburton, is that a guy you're going to miss? Because guys like that just don't grow on trees. I'm not saying he's an all-star caliber player. He may never be that. But dudes who can go out and get you, as you always point out, Kevin, in the Game 7 of the NBA Finals, 24 and 13, don't just grow on trees.
And the last thing I would add, too, is this, and to make it a video game analogy, I hope it lands, but, let's call Tyrese Halliburton a 95 overall. If he comes back from this torn Achilles, what if he is now a 90? Pascal Siakam at the age of 31, 32, let's call him a 90 overall in a video game setting. What if over the next 3 to 4 years, that number just starts to creep into the 80s? Then you're going to need somebody else to carry a heavy burden. I think a rising 23-year-old into prime years, because, NBA prime years are probably more late 20s is probably how we would view that.
Even into the early 30s now.
Sure, you definitely have that. NFL prime years, we talk about it probably in a little bit of a different light there. So that'd be one more I'd add.
Well, look, one of the great strengths that the Pacers had in that run last year was depth. They just kept coming at you, right? Matherin was a big part of that. T.J. McConnell was doing T.J. McConnell things. Obi Toppin was coming off the bench. They just kept coming at you with really good players, right? And the problem with that in the NBA is you can't keep everybody together, because at some point, if everybody's contributing and playing well, they want to get paid at a right situation somewhere, and they move on and they go do those things. That's what they're going to have to contend with as much as anything, is how do they structure this from a salary cap perspective, and how willing to go over the luxury tax are they if they feel they have the right level of depth and talent?
Yeah, I'm actually very curious to know what Benedict Matherin wants, because the argument that he could make is, well, I don't want to stick around and come off the bench for the foreseeable future either. I want a bigger role, and that might not be what he'll get here. When you look at how this team is built, like, is he going to start over Nesmith when Nesmith is healthy? If you do draft a young wing, is he going to start over that guy? No. So are you going to be our glorified six-man? Do I think I'm more than that? That's a question that I think he has to answer for himself, and might be part of the equation when it comes to evaluating what he could bring your team. Because in an ideal world, you'll keep all the best players, all the talented players, and everyone gets along fine, and there's no egos. And I'm not saying he has an ego issue at all. I definitely want to put that out there. But I do think if he looks himself in the mirror and says, I'm a starter in the NBA, I want a bigger role, I can't fault him for wanting that, even if that means going elsewhere. So very curious to see how the next 24 hours and change go.
Boys, shout out to Cluster Truck. They have these red velvet cookies here in February and March. Excellent. Red for Riley velvet. I love this initiative that they're doing. First off, the tailgate special for Sunday with the big game is an absolute must. But these cookies, every red velvet cookie sold, they're going to donate $1 to the Riley Children's Foundation, and 1 cookie to a nurse at Riley. Evan Sherrill, thank you. My little sister-in-law, Anna Lubbers, is a nurse at Riley. She's an absolute saint, and I love that she'll be, hopefully, reaping the benefit of a cookie or two over here the next 2 months.
Nurse practitioners, nurses, doctors, emergency room people.
The real goats every Monday, we should say that, right?
I'm here because of those people, Kevin. You know that better than anybody. I literally don't exist today if we don't have a team of those people one night. I know that Jake benefited from a crowd like that. So, yeah, I'm all in on Cluster Truck, but I'm even more all in on raising funds for any of our
Big
folks like
fan, the promo code, big fan, $5 off your order of 25 or more. And again, that tailgate special. Last time you can get it here, football season about to be complete. If you've got people gathering on Sunday, I think the tailgate special is great.
That's why I'm sad. Not only is it the last football game, it's the last time for a tailgate special from Cluster Truck.
I don't know how many cookies I've eaten at 9:43 in the morning, but
dive in.
I might.
Diet starts tomorrow, right?
Diet starts tomorrow. Yeah, I might be sighing like Rick Carlisle to end the show.
All right, some great stuff come through on the fan text line today. We'll get to some of that and answer some of your. You've got questions, Mark? Obviously, the text line has questions today, too. We'll get to some of that next. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
No.
The Daisy brand, it is a must here coming up this weekend. Trust me, you got one more grocery run in you before Sunday at about 6 o'clock. And if you show up to that party with the French onion dip and the ranch dip, you might as well get the MVP award right then and there. Real herbs and spices, ingredients you'd find in your own kitchen. The Daisy brand is excellent. I don't care if it's chips, wings, veggies. Hell, it might be all three of them at your gathering. You show up with the French onion dip and the ranch dip, and they're actually going to want you to come back, which probably doesn't happen too often. I can speak from personal experience on that. Again, the Daisy brand, French onion dip, the ranch dip. Thank me later.
listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Going to get some comments from the text line in a moment. But speaking of the text line, do we have some home and outdoor living show tickets to give away, Mark?
Well, not to give away. You can
qualify for it,
yes,
right?
You can qualify for it. All you have to do, and it doesn't matter if it's right now, later today during Jake's show, during JMV's show, and in the middle of the night, all you got to do is text HOME to 317-239-1070, and you'll be entered for a chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to the Suburban Home Show out at Grand Park. And we will draw those names. You'll enter your name, and then we'll give away 5 randomly selected winners on Friday.
Yep, and for more information on that, you can go to suburbanindieshows.com. Suburbanindieshows.com. And as you mentioned, it'll be up at Grand Park, the Event Center, February 6th to the 8th. So just day after tomorrow is when that starts. So home is where you want to text us at 239-1070. Going to the text line this morning, I'll just put them all together. Kevin, a lot of people commenting on the interaction between you and Rick this morning. Just how Rick is... You and him have a very different, special, cool vibe going on at this point in time.
Well, definitely not the first time he's told me no, and certainly won't be the last time. And again, I've heard that answer and that very similar emotional reaction from quite a few people in my life, unfortunately. Here, sometimes the opposite sex, if I'm going to be totally honest with you.
Okay.
I think you made out good though. When I got the Christmas card with the family on it, I was like, yeah, my boy KB, yeah, you be talking like you ain't
the most important person said yes.
There you
That's
go.
right. You only needed one.
Gosh, I hope Maddie's listening right now.
You only needed one. It'll get back
compared
to
to the Red Garter moment I had last week.
How'd that go over, by the
Rosie
way?
was in the caller asking about, why'd they say Mommy's calling in about the Red Garter?
Figure she's listening then. Never in the good moments. I know. Always then.
Jeff ain't lying. All you need is one. My dad had told me that, and honestly, I feel like it's a good conversation to have when you have young men growing up, and he's like, so don't worry about rejection. He's like, he looked at my mom and he goes, you know how many fine women turned me down before your mama said yes?
I need to listen to Jesse Boyd.
How did she react
more
to that?
advice?
Well, you know, she gave him the look like, and none of them looked as good as me. And so it's comedy in the Boyd household. But boy, Pops told me from a young age, hey, shooting percentages do not matter.
If I said that, I'd be ducking for a frying pan coming at my
head. Scott has texted in. You ready for this? I just figured out who JB sounds like. Chris Tucker, but in control. How about that?
I'll take it. I think Chris Tucker has, brought out a lot of joy in people. So hopefully when y'all listen, you can get a little laugh out of the show here.
To get several questions on the text line, James, about Benedict Mather in a starting role on the second contract. And again, he's a restricted free agent. This is not he just walk.
Right.
And
you
could sign and trade it. Yes, you can match. You could sign and trade in the offseason. So there is a lot here that I think the Pacers have got to sift through. But, I think you can make the argument that, his presence in a sixth-man role it might be bigger, more important than finding, again, a center. So I just think those are all questions you have to sift through. What is easier to find? I get into this debate about Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman Jr. a lot with the Colts. What trait is easier to find? I'd argue you got a better chance of going to the grocery and finding a Michael Pittman Jr. on the shelf than an Alec Pierce. The home run ability that Pierce brings, I think, is more difficult. Given the makeup of this roster, I think Matherin's trait is rather unique. And at times we look at it too much in a negative. You have to, no, you have to form to us. Well, it's like, well, sometimes a little bit of a different taste ain't the worst thing in the world.
Different Scott says some of his best Olympic moments that he has seen. Carrie Strug, you brought up, Kevin. Jackie Joyner and her dominance was the first Olympics he remembers. Cole Hawker. Just a couple of years ago.
Cole Hawker. I mean, my audible reaction
when he passed,
jumping off the couch on that final lap. Maddie was upstairs. She was like, "What is going on down there?" I'm like, "I'm rewinding this, and you need to watch it."
Yeah, I'm old school. I actually remember when Bruce Jenner won the decathlon when I was a little kid in 1976. We all ran around waving American flags when we were running around the track at school, pretending to be Olympians after that.
Well, I'll give you one that was a little more recent, but I never felt more patriotic than when the Steph Curry moment happened in the Olympics. Boy. That might be the most joy I've ever had.
And listening to Halliburton and LeBron discuss that on the pod, again, when your peers are talking about it in the all light that you're talking about it in, That truly resonates.
I love that whole story. You'll have to go check that out with LeBron and Halliburton talking about his, this is my role moment on the Olympics. Jake comes your way at noon today.